Morning. You guys only have one piece today? Two? Oh, okay. Maybe I missed it. All right. Ordinance number 73, 2024 by Council Members McCormick, Bishop, and Harrison. This is a departmental request. It's an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to issue a permit to 4116 Lorraine LLC to encroach into the public right-of-way above Lorraine Avenue by installing, using, and maintaining a new entry canopy. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, so this is a typical encroachment permit, and it's for an awning over the entrance door to a property at 4116 Lorraine Avenue for a new restaurant and bar called Proof. And we do have concurrence from Councilman McCormick, and this will allow for the renovation to move forward. And we would appreciate your support.
All right, Director, did you provide a drawing to the committee?
I do not know if there's a drawing, but I do have one here. I think there's one, but I'm not positive if it was included.
Okay, so this is the canopy right here?
Right, yep, just right across the frontage. It's kind of a small building.
Looks pretty, is that the way it's going to be?
Yes.
Okay, looks nice.
Mm-hmm.
All right, is there any questions on? Is it?
Oh, I'm sorry, this is Robert Chappelle to my left. He's our design. We have a section for design and engineering and construction, and he's the design section chief. And so he's under Rick Swatowski, heading up the design section. Thank you,
Go ahead, Councilman.
Councilman.
Yeah, because I was thinking you replaced, was it Eric? Who retired? Who left us?
Bow tie.
Oh, Carter Edmond.
Carter.
So,
Carter.
Yeah,
That's
no.
what I'm like.
So, bow tie. So we do have that job posted, and we are interviewing folks, but we have not replaced them yet. So if there are any architects that you all want to recommend apply for the job, we're accepting resumes.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure I confirm, like, yo,
No,
is
no.
this Carter replaced?
No,
That's
we'll
all.
do a good introduction when we get the new Carter in.
All right.
Okay, welcome to council. Your first time here?
Second, actually.
Second,
Yeah,
okay.
A few months ago I was here, so yeah.
Okay. All right, any questions on ordinance number 73, 2024? All right, seeing no questions on ordinance number 73, 2024, it stands approved.
So, Councilman, 30, 2024, we'll do that. It's with Director Williams, but we'll do that.
Okay, you do that? Okay.
You can have a seat. Thanks. Thanks, Rob. You need forward. I got it. Thank you.
Ordinance number 30, 2024 by council members Spencer, Bishop, and Griffin. This is also a departmental request, an emergency ordinance to change the name of Lake Park to Lake Pool Park. Okay, Director.
Mr. Chairman, so this proposed name change came from both the residents and Councilwoman Spencer. And it's really made to celebrate the fact that there's a pool at this particular park.
Okay.
And back in the day, there was only a pool, and then a park was built around it. So a lot of the residents remember specifically just saying, let's go to Lake Pool. And so, so this will sort of celebrate that and call it Lake Pool Park.
Okay. Now, how long has this pool been there?
I do not know when it was started, but it's yeah. It's been there a long time. Now, we just started a park improvement project there, so this is sort of in conjunction with the park improvement project that is just getting underway. The bids are in place, contract signed, so as springtime hits, you'll see a lot of construction out there.
Okay. All right. Is there any question on ordinance number 30, 2024? All right. How is this pool? Has this pool been maintained very well?
It's not a bit. It's one of the smaller learn to swim pools, so it's like a smaller concrete pool. It's you know pretty basic, but it's not bad. It's small. It's one of the smaller ones.
Okay. All right, seeing no further questions, ordinance number 30, 2024 is approved. Please sign it.
Thank you.
All right, Director. Public Works. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, sir.
We're going to start off with ordinance number 74, 2024 by council members Bishop and Griffin. This is a departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to enter into a license agreement with Key Bank National Association to use and occupy city-owned property located within Cleveland City Hall for the installation and maintenance of a Key Bank automated teller machine terminal located in room 122, vital statistics for the use and convenience of the general public for a period of 2 years with one additional one-year option to renew, exercisable by the Director of Public Works. Okay, Director, this is a ATM that's going back in because it was one in before, right?
Through the chair, to the chair, yes, that's correct. This is the same one that had been in there, I think, since 2005. So this is just a renewal. I would say, though, with that purpose, this is one of the newer ones since I've been back that I wasn't aware of. I would like to put past this one, but then the next time I would like to go out for an RFP possibly to make sure that all the other banks get an opportunity to bid.
Okay, does the city get any revenue off this, or is it just the convenience?
To the chair, no, it's just for convenience.
Convenience, okay. All right. All right, any questions on ordinance number 74, 2024?
Mr. Chair.
Councilman Harrison?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm glad to hear the director say that because, as we talk about, investing in communities and who isn't, who is, at what levels, we've seen consistently the reports that Key Bank has been the worst as relates to lending in the city of Cleveland, and particularly the black communities in Cleveland. And so, I don't know how I feel about this today, whether, I get it as a matter of convenience and we're not generating revenue, but coming back here for subsequent approvals would be very important. Can you explain to me the urgency to have this in that downstairs?
Through the chair to the councilman. So I would say on the city side, there's no urgency as far as our operations goes. This is purely a convenience to the folks who come down, and when they're getting their birth certificates and they need to be able to pay for it, they can easily go to that ATM instead of going outside and having to come back through all our security checks. It's there. So it's all about convenience.
Gotcha. We do have a downstairs. There you go. Credit union downstairs. Maybe we should look at the credit union kind of installing their own ATM system right in the building. I mean, we have our own credit union here, but then we're using someone else's ATM. I get sometimes credit unions partner with ATMs and so forth, if they don't have the ability to, have their own on site. But maybe this is an opportunity for us to uplift the credit union in a different way, to have their own ATM installed here on site. I don't know, I'm a little concerned about Key Bank, but I'm willing to roll with it. What is this, for 1 year?
Through the chair to the council person, this is a two-year with an additional one-year option. Yes, 2 years. 2 years with one additional option.
Okay. Okay, yeah, 2 year for one additional option. So, and I'll wait to hear what my colleagues has to say, whether, we knock that down, to a year to give time for an RFP to go out. I think this was discussed in the past, and Councilman Kays, if I'm not mistaken, regarding an RFP for someone to provide an automatic teller machine inside of the building. So I can't recall exactly the conversation previously about this, but, I'm happy to support whatever the committee thinks is appropriate. Thank you.
Through the chair to the council person, I do agree with your concerns, and I would yield to whatever that you all would decide on this one. Again, when I saw it, I kind of scratched my head a little bit too, as to our due diligence as it relates to really taking a look at what other options were out there. With this one, it's just one of those ones that were kind of. It just popped up on me, so I do apologize if this had come before, but I do understand the reason to have pause on this one, so I do yield to any
You know, you live in
approach.
Cleveland, on the
Yes,
east side.
yes, sir, yes, sir, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Harrison. Councilman Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, is the fee set at $1 downstairs?
Through the chair to the councilman, the fee to the city?
It says at a cost of $1, so they're only paying $1, but do we know what the fee is to take your money out of the ATM downstairs?
Through the chair to the councilman, for those who are non-key, it's $4.
$4. So if you're going to take $20 out to get a birth certificate, you're going to actually be charged $24.
Through the chair to the councilman, yeah, if you're not a key bank, yep.
Exactly. So it could cost you up to $6 probably. Mr. Chairman, I'm not a fan of this either, but I understand the convenience of it all. So I'd recommend a motion under Section 2. Line 1, it should read, the term of the license agreement shall be for 1 year. And then that's it. No option to renewal, not exercisable by the, and then strike 2 years with one additional 1 year option to renew exercisable by the Director of Public Works. We should just make this a year, give you guys the opportunity to go out to bid and possibly, I like the idea of working with the credit union. So that would be my recommendation for an amendment, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Councilman Casey has a motion on the floor for an amendment. Is there any, I want to open this up for discussion. Is there any comment, Councilman Starr? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yes,
Hold on, Councilman Starr. Oh, okay. Is there a second?
second.
All right, Councilman Starr, second the motion.
And I second that motion, the amendment that Councilman Casey brought up, and just wanted to make sure for clarification during this discussion period. So from Councilman Casey's standpoint, we're looking to amend this so we can go out for a bid to find an opportunity to potentially use someone else. To the chair, to Councilman Casey.
Okay, Councilman Casey.
Correct.
Correct. And I second that due to the fact that I think that it's very important that we utilize some resources that we do currently have here. The Greater Cleveland Community Credit Union, you know, has been servicing our community since 1937. And if we're going to have any growth or opportunity, we got to invest in our own banking system. I'm a firm believer that these large institutions do not invest in our community. So they don't do anything. And I'm not going to go in the soapbox and bro down on Key Bank, but they don't do a darn thing that is equitable in our community. They just hear and use us as far as the community when it's convenient for them. And I think working with the credit union, working with Steve Sims down there, I think we can do something through our credit union to be able to make this a better fit for our residents, because the things that he do in his credit union is amazing. And I think that's something we should definitely lean to. So I do second this amendment from Councilman Casey for us to try to go out and bid and see if we can do something different.
Okay, is there any other discussion or comments on the legislation?
Mr. Chairman,
Councilman Jones.
thank you. You know, one of the things, and I hope that Key Bank is listening this morning, and what is actually being said here is that they're not investing in our community. Now, you've heard me sit here at this table for 6 years and talk about the lack of investment in the African American community and the need to invest in the African American community. When Mrs. Johnson or Mrs. Jones or Mrs. Ulela Parker wants to buy or purchase a property next door to them for $40,000 or $50,000, the banks won't give them that money. But they will allow for other investors to come in and snap up those properties. So I hope that they're listening and they're understanding this, and just to give a little bit more background with the frustration of some of our members here at the table. But also on the bright side, Mr. Chairman, because there's always two sides of the coin, at least they're making an effort to, or someone made an overture to, put a machine there so that they will have the services available to them. And then the question becomes, how did this all come about, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Through the chair to the council member, as I mentioned earlier, this was seems like it started back in 2005. So that's why we're kind of going to take a look at bringing all the players to the table and take a look at who can best serve the city of Cleveland. But we're going to start with our credit union in that way. This is one of those ones that I inherited. So again, it takes a closer eye on it going forward, and I plan to do so.
Right. Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm not against any of the members' recommendations here. I would just encourage, financial institutions like KeyBank and others to be more engaged in the African American community. And we're not asking for anything special. We're just asking that you open up your purse strings and you loan to the African American community and to African American businesses. That's really important. And I would also say to you, we're here to work with you as a council. We're here to work with you as adults in the room. We understand that in order to move the city of Cleveland forward, we need to have everybody working together. And so let's renew a better understanding, send some people here to the table, and just talk to us as members, and don't be scared by it. That's my comments, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. Is there any other comments on the amendment, the motion on the floor? All right, those in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed? The ayes have it. So ordinance number 74, 2024, as amended, it stands approved. All right, next we're going to go to ordinance number 385, 2023. By council members Bishop and Griffin, by departmental request, this emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works to employ one or more professional consultants to assess, recommend, and/or procure property insurance for the City of Cleveland-owned stadium located at 100 Alfred Lerner Way and other related services for a period up to 2 years. Okay, Director.
Thank you, Chairman. Passage of this legislation is necessary for the property insurance covering the stadium, also known as Cleveland Browns Stadium, where the Cleveland Browns play football. This contract term is up to 2 years. This is refined, as you recall, the last contract, we actually refined those things and made the changes necessary for the current times, and at the cost of $641,890.81. I do have Assistant Director Laird for any questions that you may have on this piece of legislation.
Okay, so what's the dollar amount you're asking for this piece for insurance for the stadium?
So to the chair, for this insurance, last year we paid about, as you see, about $641,000. So we're hoping to have about the same amount. So we don't have an exact number on it, because when the RFPs come in, we go by what those costs are. But my hope is that it's around that same price, about $641,000.
Okay, all right. And the firm that did it last year, are they bidding on it, same thing?
To the chair, yes, they will be.
Okay. All right, is there any questions on ordinance number 1385? Councilman Jones?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, do we have you said 641,890. So with that 641,890.81, you're saying that's the same contract we had last year?
I'm sorry, through the chair to the council member, that is the current contract, that is the $641,890.81. That's the current contract.
So what was it last year? Do we have like at least how many years go all the way back? How much has it increased? And then what is our total cost in terms of insurance for this in a 10-year cycle?
So through the chair to the councilman, the previous year was about, I think it was about 590,000, something like that. The year before that, it was about 400,000.
So why are they increasing it, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Through the chair to the councilman, that increase happened because the stadium had been undervalued.
Is what?
It was undervalued. When we were actually doing these, getting this insurance, we went out and actually found out what was the value, the replacement value. That's what we had to go by. And once that was done, the actual amount of the policy, it increased substantially. And we also had to, with the COVID, you had things like terrorism coverage. So there was extra things that we hadn't had before that got included into the insurance. And so that was why you saw that increase. But I can provide to this body, if you do desire to see the last 4 or 5 years.
So let me just make sure I'm on the same page. The insurance company, you went out to get their services, or they come to you for service? How does that work?
Through the chair to the councilman, we send out a request for proposal for insurance.
Okay.
So we do a canvas.
Okay. And then you told them how much you think your value is, or they came back and told you?
Well, through the chair to the councilman, what we tell them is, here's the property. They actually do a walkthrough. They get an opportunity to see what they'll be covering, what needs to happen, any claims that have happened in the previous periods. And once they do that, they make an assessment of what they believe the insurance, all the coverages that we ask for flood, for terrorism, for property damage, all those kind of things. So based on those coverages that we ask for, they give us a quote based on that. No different from if you had a person that you were asking for car insurance for.
Right. I get that, but they're the underwriters, right? So they should tell you, if you're going out there, how much you can get your insurance for, unless you told them.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's correct. They tell us what the costs are.
So did we have any claims on the facility, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Through the chair to the councilman, the last claim we had was, I think, about 2013. So we haven't had any claims since.
It just seems weird to me. It makes sense what you're saying if you yourself had evaluated it and saw the increase. Is that what you were saying, or you're saying that they had evaluated and saw that there was an increase, or they should increase it?
So through the chair to the councilman, they did not value the property.
They didn't do what?
They did not give I don't know if, I want to make sure, are you asking if they gave a value for the property itself?
Well, see, here's the issue. You're saying that we jumped up a significant amount of 400,000 to now 641,000. That's major. That's not little. Now, if the cost had increased because there is some kind of issues or claims against the building, or someone fell and hurt themselves, for an example, and that's the claims go up, or you could give some examples of that. But the significant increase is significant. And so is it based upon their assessment, or did you give them assessment and say, hey, this is what we think the value is? And I mean, how did that work is the question.
So through the chair to the councilman, that price jump happened about 2 years ago. That significant increase, and that was a matter of at the time, the folks that we had given us the insurance at that time came back and told us that the replacement cost for the stadium was a lot more than what we had assumed. And that happened back in, I think, 2019 or 2020.
Okay, so the insurance came back. That was a different insurance, or
That was a different company. It was Highland.
higher than what we have here now, is what you're saying?
We have a different organization now.
Okay. No further questions, Mr. Chairman, to the director. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. There any other questions on ordinance number 1385? So, Director, the insurance, I'm hearing insurances keep going up across the board. I've heard a lot of big increases. So is this reflective of just the insurance costs nationwide?
So to the chair, so far, yes. Again, with the replacement costs as you get stadiums being made with domes on them and stadiums throughout the, when you go do a canvas of the costs, they could be anywhere to, $1 billion, $1.5 billion for a replacement cost. That's kind of stemming how these, but yeah, to your point, yes, it's happening across the nation, not just here.
Okay. All right, seeing no further questions, ordinance number 1385 is approved. Please sign it. Ordinance number 103, 2024, by council members Bishop and Griffin. It's a departmental request. An emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works and Finance to enter into one or more concession agreements for operation of soft drink, candy, snack, and other vending machines throughout various parks and various city-owned and city-leased buildings for a period not to exceed 2 years, with 1 year option to renew, exercisable by the directors, and to extend the existing concession agreements for a period up to 6 months or until such earlier time as new concession agreements are entered into under this ordinance. Okay, Director, can you give us a breakdown on what this ordinance will do?
So, to the chair, this vendor will supply vending products throughout various city staff buildings, as you've seen. The vendor is required to stock the vending machines with 100% healthy products, and there's a litany of different things that they have to provide. But one of the biggest I'd mention is all of the contents have to have 220 or less calories per serving, which was one of the bigger things that the health department was really focused on. This is all for the period of 2 years with an additional 1 year option to renew.
Okay.
Any questions?
So, Director, is this, so who has this contract now?
To the chair, currently AVI Food Systems, Inc., and that expires 12/31/24.
Okay, so the new vendor, we're going to put standards on them to have healthier options.
Correct.
Okay.
There's 1, 2, 3, there's about 10 standards that we have listed that they must meet. 35% of its calories from fat, contains no more than 1.5 grams of saturated fat, and several other things pointed at sodium and sugar.
Sound like that's not going to be any fun. So,
No comment.
so Director, will this one company get to have their machines in all of city-owned buildings? I guess that's my question.
The selected bidder would have that jurisdiction. We did kind of take a look at the possibility of using multiple, but the management of that to try to oversee multiple and throughout all the buildings throughout the city, it was just too unwieldy for internal administrative staffing to keep up with.
Will this company have to go through OEO requirements and things like that?
That is correct.
Okay. All right, I'm going to open it up to questions for ordinance number 103. Councilman Brian Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, I'm just pulling it up now, but how much is this contract worth? What does this cost us?
Through the chair to the councilman, there's a revenue share of about 17 or so % of their revenues.
So then how much in 2023 did the city make on it?
I will have to get back to you. There's not only, through the chair to the councilman, not only is it through general fund, but it's also public utilities and airports. So I'd have to find out what their revenues were.
Do you know what the number was, Mr. Chairman, to the director for 2022?
Through the chair, we can get those numbers to you.
Okay. And then I'm not one of these people, but somebody brought up the option of not being able to get a coffee after the cafeteria closes here in City Hall. Maybe you're one of those people. I'm not, but I wanted to bring that up because maybe that should be part of the requirement. I don't know what the health department wants as far as health. I don't know. I'm not a coffee connoisseur. Don't drink it. But it definitely should be something that's offered to City Hall and other buildings. I don't know if it's offered in other buildings, but we know it's not offered here. So if we could look in the possibility of them adding an additional whatever you can get with coffee.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, I don't think that would be a problem, being able to add something like that in
All right.
the contract.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Councilman Casey. I'm going to Councilman Jones next.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just, for this elected official, if we're talking about various pieces of legislation, in years of old, they used to bring what they call the folder. So the folder would have all the information concerning whatever the issue is. So when a council member would ask a question concerning any information concerning what we're deliberating in front of us, the homework was already there. The directors and the commissioners have done the homework. We sit here often, a lot of times, Mr. Chairman, and we ask questions relating to the legislation that's before us, but we don't have the answers. And then sometimes, Mr. Chairman, when we're to the director, when we're asking the questions, not to get the information, because having that information, having your side of the table prepared with the folders to give us the answers will give us better direction as the council to have a better understanding of the legislation, as well, Mr. Chairman, to make the proper suggestions on what we could see to expand the situation or to deliberate in a way utilizing wisdom. So now my question, Mr. Chairman, is that we have 17% in revenue. So do we have an idea of what that is, Mr. Chairman, to the director or the commissioner?
So through the chair to the councilman, it's not a difficult thing for us to get that information. We can get that to you today, but we don't have it with us right now.
Do you know how much they're making on the overall, other than the 17 annual? We can do the math here ourselves.
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't have an exact figure.
Do you have an ideal or rough estimate?
To the chair to the councilman, I do not, because there is the airports and there's public utilities who have separate, they collect as well.
So then the next question, Mr. Chairman, is how many vending machines are we talking about?
Through the chair to the councilman, probably somewhere between 30 or so vending machines. It changes as based on the contract. If there's not enough revenue, they can pull the machines. If we want to add machines, we ask them. So that number changes.
So you're saying roughly, you're not totally sure, but you can get that number back too.
Through the chair.
That what we're really talking about is 30 vending machines?
Through the chair to the councilman, about that number.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, to the director, ABI Food Service, Inc., are they out of the city of Cleveland?
Through the chair to the councilman, they are not in Cleveland, but they are in Cuyahoga County.
And Mr. Chairman, to the director, what are their nationality? Are they African American? Are they white? Are they Chinese? Who are they?
Through the chair to the councilman, I do not know their nationality. They are not minority. They're not a registered minority business or female business with the city. I do not know their nationality.
Do we know if they have minorities in there?
Through the chair to the councilman, there was no minority or Cleveland small business participation in this contract.
So when you put it out there, you couldn't find, these are the people who came up. No one else came to try to give vending machines when you did that?
Through the chair to the councilman, because of the health requirements, most of the folks who would have done this backed out.
Because of the health requirements?
Because of the requirements for the type of things that need to go in the vending machine.
Well, I've been down the vending machine. It's regular products to me. I don't see nothing out of the extraordinary. I don't see foods in there, all I see is the regular products. So I don't see how others could not be able to.
Through the chair to the councilman, I totally understand where you're coming from. When we put the RFP out, those are the requirements that were there. Mm-hmm. And so whoever read that and responded to it based on what they saw, that was what we got back.
And then, so then it was stated that if these are just 30 vending machines, it sounds like, you couldn't maybe have 2 contracts, maybe have some reward someone with half of that amount, and then you have 2 people you deal with. So would that be too much for management, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Through the chair to the councilman, It would be a challenge to try to do that, to work through that with two vendors. It's possible to do the way the RFP is set up, but to actually try to administer that, there would be challenges to that administratively.
So these locations we have here are all the locations where they're at?
Director, Councilman Jones, you asked a question, right?
Yeah, these are all the locations, because I'm counting 50.
Through the chair to the councilman, we do not know what you're looking at when you ask that question.
Well, there has your vending machine locations. We have a sheet of paper here in our bio that gives us a breakdown of the vending machine locations.
So in our executive summary, they have a list of locations, correct? Is that what you're referring to, right, Councilman?
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chairman, just again, I'm not opposed to this. I don't know the total value of the legislation. It would be good to know that, and then what the revenues are that the city has here. And then I would just humbly suggest, Mr. Chairman, to the director, make sure we have our folder so if you could, with some sugar on top, and if I need to slice some cake and bring it in here from the vending machine, and some coffee, can you please make sure that when we're asking questions that are germane to legislation, that you bring the folder here, because we should know this.
Through the chair to the council member, your advice is duly taken, and we will do a better job at anticipating the questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, just to reiterate what Councilman Jones has said, that, we do, when we ask questions, we ask, we expect to get an answer about an answer for the questions that we ask, because they're important. And, they may not be important to the whole committee, but if it's important to one member, it's important to the committee as a whole. So, again, to back up Councilman Jones, if we can have that information by finance today, we can move this forward. Okay? All right, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, next I'm going to go to Councilwoman Marr.
Thank you. I'll be brief because I'm much more interested in, and I think more serious topics like the Project Clean conversation that I hope we'll have next, and I intend to lay some firmer ground on that. But I'll just say I think these health rules are sort of silly, and I think that if someone wants to be able to get a regular Coke at a vending machine in the basement of City Hall, they should be able to. I think there's a lot of things that have come to the health department around sort of regulating sort of various restaurant menus and things like that. And it's funny because I didn't expect to develop a libertarian belief at this job, but I think my most libertarian belief is that you should be able to get a bag of Cheez-Its if you want to out of these vending machines. So I will vote yes on this legislation. I'm just gonna vote that it's a begrudging yes, and that I think if you can change it to 75% meeting these requirements, that would give, frankly, our staff the flexibility and dignity to just get a snack that they maybe want at a particular time of day while still making sure that there are healthy options available.
So if I could, through the chair to the councilwoman, at the time that we put this original one out, there was a different administration with a different way of doing things.
Yeah.
We're in a new, we have an opportunity to make changes, so we have no objection to those. We'll work with our counterparts in the health department, and we'll make sure that all the things that we possibly can do, we will do.
Well, I don't think I can make an amendment to move to 75% because I think that it's in the executive summary rather than in the legislation itself.
Just add it to the legislation.
Is that what you think? Is that?
If you want to make a motion.
Mr. Chair?
Councilman Harris.
No,
You got a point.
I was just referring to you whether,
Yeah.
you can always amend the ordinance just to add it to the ordinance.
That's a great
Although
Okay.
it's in the executive summary.
Okay, is there, Councilwoman?
Well, you're almost about to get there, so it seems.
Hold on,
like this is
Councilman Jones.
important.
Hold on, Councilman Jones.
I I have bigger fish to fry today with this next piece of legislation that's up. So I'll just express my wishes to the department.
All right, I'm gonna go to Councilman Anthony Hairston.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. A couple of my questions have been answered. To the chair, to the director, this is, just to reaffirm, this is only for the vending machines, not the stadium, our local football stadiums concessions.
Through the chair to the councilman, this is only for city-owned buildings and vending machines. That's correct.
Okay, got it. And to the chair, when do you come back for the like Collinwood Stadium, Glenville Stadium, the JFK stadiums? When do you come back for that? Through the chair.
So through the chair to the councilman, that piece for concessions, I believe, is that what you're referring to?
Right, and that's why I asked, because I see concession in this ordinance, the
Yeah.
word concession.
Yeah, and through the chair to the councilman, these concessions, again, for machines, just
Okay.
for the vending machines.
Got it. When do you come back to the chair for the stadiums? And I only asked that question because I've heard from teams on the northeast side, for example, Collinwood, the person who has Collinwood Stadium, long lines, only one person working. You can't sell anything within a certain footprint of the stadium. And by the time they get through, they'll be almost the third or fourth quarter of the game and nobody has been able to get anything. So folks are, concerned.
So through the chair to the councilman, I know of at least 3 areas where we have those type of agreements, or Collinwood, at Brookside, and at Gordon, which Gordon is a moot point now because Metro Parks actually runs that.
Mm-hmm.
So I know of only 2 other areas where the concessions are, and I believe that we've already have something in place now for the next year or so. So we probably won't come back to this body for concessions for those areas until next year or so, somewhere around that time.
Okay, we can talk about it offline. I just didn't know whether that included this as well, but I see there's only vending machines, so nothing further, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Hairston. Councilman Richard Starr.
Thank you, Chair. And just real quick, from the piggyback off what my colleague, Councilman Hairston, brought up, Dwayne Brodderfield. East Tech couldn't play no football games this past season on the field. The bleachers have been, the metal that hold the bleachers up, been stolen. I've been talking to Director James DeRosa of MoCap about how do we secure that field. I know when they first initially built the field, their whole thought process is have it more of a community field, but if the field is being torn up by folks, whether they're in the community or not, and not really protecting the field. So I'm figuring out how do we get these repairs, the field, the goalposts, the windows in the box where coaches be at, those get vandalized because the field is just open. At any time, somebody could just come in and do whatever they want. And people have been stealing the metal, using it as a scrap yard, using that metal to take it to the scrap yard. And then people were burning fireworks on the field. So the patches on the field, I know I've talked to Ralph and Commissioner Gissy Tanner about this, but one of the reality is we sent somebody to repair the field, and then we're gonna send them next week to repair the field. So I was trying to figure out how do we fence it up and possibly add some type of fencing around it similar to how we have around Collinwood, so therefore we can secure it and then have it opened up when Lonnie Burton Recreation Center need to open it up for when the field needs to be due. But I urge us to figure out some type of solution ASAP. East Tech has a good season coming up this year. Unfortunately, they did make it to the city championship last year. This year we're gonna win it, so we need to be able to play at our field. So I definitely know that is a top priority, definitely on my to-do list. So that was something I definitely want to bring to attention to see how we can get that field secure so it can be accessible and utilized as much as any other field in the city. That's just one point. I know we talk about that offline more in depth. But one of the things that I do want to express my concern with Ordinance 103 is the lack thereof of participation of people in our city. No discredit or disrespect to our AVI food systems who's been around since 1960. But, you know, what's the sense of having an office of equal opportunity and we're not utilizing and building up the wealth in our community, in our neighborhoods, with this type of work? I've seen, you know, I be on social media. Everybody got vending machines. Everybody got different services. So my question would be, how do we build up the private sector to be able to get involved in these type of contracts? I know everything that you did with AVI system was from a previous administration that you mentioned through the chair, assistant director, which is great. But I'm trying to figure out how do we expand it. When I look at when my colleague Councilman Joe Jones mentioned all these different locations, how do we expand it to become something that not just equitable, but more so the diversity and bringing it to the home rule of how we can build up our private sector in our community, people from our neighborhoods to be able to participate. And like you said, when you look at that vending machine, it's no different than any other vending machines that we have. And then that also leads to me thinking about the vending machines that are inside of our recreation centers. Have we did any assessments of those vending machines as well? Just to see how it is, because I go in certain recreation centers and the vending machine is always empty. And I don't know whose vending machines it is, primarily in Lonnie Burton. I don't know who vending machine is, but it's always empty. And I know when I was a kid, they used to have all the 50-cent pops. Now I know pops ain't 50 cents no more, but I used to get busy in there when I was supposed to be having that sugar. So just trying to figure out how do we build up the private sector through the chair for them to have a great opportunity to bid on these contracts so they can be able to put some of their businesses in some of these locations. And I think we was hinting at through Councilwoman Moore, probably 25%, 75, 25%, or some type of percentage to help build up people. And I think that helps our community through the chair.
Through the chair to the council member, all of your comments are definitely taken under advisement. As this was, as mentioned, it was something from the past administration, so I will need to take a closer eye to it. One of the things I would make mention of, to your point on the rec centers, we have just recently created a health and advisory council that's created to interface some of the lower level staff with the director's office on a better occasion. So what I will do is take your conversation as far as the vending machines to that group so they can inform me better what things actually move out of those rec center vending machines. Because I think, as Councilmember Moore mentioned, and as you mentioned, the content is going to drive a lot of the use and, of course, the revenues, as you mentioned. So looking at finding what that sweet spot is, and if has been any assessments, whether nationally or locally, to inform us of that, will probably give us a better opportunity to get other players at the table. So that'll be something we will look at going forward.
Also, through the chair to the councilman, for the recreation centers for their vending machines, I think most of those are through their advisory council, so that revenue goes to them. So you probably won't see in this list vending machines that are at rec centers, because that's typically how those kind of were set up.
Thank you, Director, Assistant Director. That makes a great point through the chair. Is there a way to assess those advisory committee? Because they may have an advisory committee that was active at one point, but it's probably not as aggressive or active as they used to be. So those vending machines oftentimes are sitting and not being utilized to the best of their ability. So I definitely would love for the department to possibly do an assessment and figure out what's a new modern strategy to be able to ensure that those vending machines are being utilized the best way, and also knowing who the owners are. Because I have multiple center managers at Lonnie Burton, they don't know who machines it is. So that's probably the reason why it is sitting empty. But then it's also making me think, like, if I have a machine somewhere, I'm going to do my weekly or bi-weekly checkups on my machine to be able to keep it serviced. So something to put some accountability on those vendors would be very important. And then my last point that I definitely would just bring up, that I'll probably talk more later offline, is have we created or thought about creating, or do we have something in place for recreation center programming, some type of committee? I definitely like a committee to look at it at a bird's eye view, and dive deeper sometimes of what the programming is being offered at the recreation centers, as well as any assessment of what, some of the things, because one of the things that I see all the time, and nothing towards this team here, director and assistant director to the chair, is I see the same flyers that I saw as a kid. Like the same type of style, same type of stuff that's offering. It's not catching no more. If it caught me as a kid, and I can imagine these kids are far advanced. They're more robust in their delivery of getting things in. But it's like we running the same playbook, but we haven't really updated it. Like, yes, basketball leagues are great. Yes, sports initiative, baseball, outdoor stuff, it's great, but it's not catching and not appealing. And I look at it from the same point that like most of my colleagues mentioned, recreation centers saved our lives. But they're not coming to the recreation center for the stuff that we are putting out. And I think we need to really be honest with ourselves, do a whole SWOT analysis. I love to be a part of a committee to dive deep into the weeds of this. And I always speak, when I speak on things, I'm not speaking about the complaining issue. I'm more so, how can I help fix it? Because I see this issue. Like, it's alarming. Like, I don't see people coming to our recreation centers for nothing. And whether it's on the west side, whether it's on the east side, or anything like that. And we also may need to have some real dynamic conversation about how much funding we are putting into the programmatic system, the programs of the recreation center, and then also dive deep into the pay. You ain't gonna, you're gonna have all these vacancies because we're not paying nobody to do this job. Like I said, I have 15 and a half years working with you through this type of work. I'm not about to work second shift and make $15, $16. I mean, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock to 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock to make $15. No, we got to raise that bar when I can go to Amazon and make more money, more hours, and overtime. So I just definitely want to see if we do have a committee in place that discuss the truths. And our truths is how we're going to make our recreation centers be that meeting ground. Mm-hmm. You don't even have the OG grandmas going to the recreation center. This over this weekend I was studying some public housing initiatives that were dealing across the country. And one of the things that you look in poor communities, urban neighborhoods, is having that community center, that recreation center has to be the place that their kids go to after school. But if it's not booming and he ain't got the right program going, I don't care what we put in place, nobody gonna go. Mm-hmm. So definitely would love to talk offline and bring that to the point that that's something I'm looking into. And then also to bring awareness to my colleagues. If you look at the department and the division of recreation center, their funding strategy and how much funding they have has been the same funding for decades. So you get what you pay for. Yeah. And if we're gonna really talk about the violence, if we are really gonna talk about the youth, if we're really gonna talk about the lack of program, lack of mentors, lack of responsibility, we need to pay them a competitive salary that makes sense. I mean, one of the things I think is great is, my colleague Councilman Casey, he has a summer basketball programming that runs for about 8 to 9 weeks. And he does it at a recreation center, at a recreational park, at a city park. And guess what he do? He's putting up the funding as well as his council to support him to do that. And he's getting kids and young adults, teenagers throughout the city. How do we create that type of strategy with all sports, all initiatives, all year round? Because if he's able to get them for 8 weeks to do something, that's a catch. Now he can be able to dive deep into what they need help with and assistance with. That can be something that's great. So that's something I definitely would love to talk about offline and possibly sit on or get involved in any committee because our city needs help. And our recreation center has to step it up, but we need to make sure they have the tools, the resources they needed to be able to deliver on things that we need them to do. And that's all I have, Chair.
All right, thank you, Councilman Starr. All right, next I'm gonna go to Councilman Joe Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Really quickly, first I want to applaud my colleagues, Anthony Harrison and Richard Starr, in their line of questioning is because this is important. And I also want to commend the administration because as soon as I said what I had to say, had a flurry of responses. And one of them is to, commend the administration for choosing healthy choices. So often in the African American community, they dump products and goods in our communities that sicken our people and has unfortunately destroyed our neighborhoods as relates to people's health. And so I'm in full support of having healthy options. And I also believe, Mr. Chairman, that you should have a little bit of diversity too. So I'm not against that. But listening to Richard Starr has inspired me. And then I had some other comments about minority participation and other concessions. So the question would be, for your department, Mr. Chairman, to the director, because I know the city has these little fiefdoms in place. So it's not like one big place or location where all concession bids go out, correct?
I didn't understand.
So through the chair to the councilman, I want to make sure, are you asking if there are more than one RFP going out for concessions?
No. Yeah, well, you may have concessions for your facilities and recreational departments, but that doesn't account for other departments that may have facilities too and want to have vending machines in it.
So through the chair to the councilman, this contract will cover, there's public utilities, there's the airports, and there's general fund buildings on
So
this.
it's everything. So you cover everything in terms
Yes,
of
for vending machines.
I see. So, and that's concessions too?
No, not concessions, just vending machines.
Just vending
Through the chair
machines?
to the councilman.
I see. So, and this would be the full contract here. There wouldn't be any other vending concessions or anything combined. This is it.
Through the chair to the councilman, this is the only contract that I know about. I do work with the folks in these other departments.
Okay.
They don't have any other contracts.
I see. So then when the bidding process goes out, Mr. Chairman, because we talked about, and my colleague Richard Starr talked about the importance of bringing minority participation into the table. And it's not just here, right? And then, so when you're doing that, so you just put the bid out, the CEOCG or CEOC gets involved?
Through the chair to the councilman, no. But what our department is all about cooperation. So if you have vendors that you believe are qualified to do this, please, by all means, let us know. We can add them to our list when we send out this RFP through the chair to the council.
So when you do send bids out, do you post it online? And if so, when was this posted?
Through the chair to the councilman, we do post these online as well as email out to the list that we have. It goes on the city's website. Once we get the approval to do it through the chains that we have to go through within the city, we post those immediately.
Now, question, does that fall in, Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, because now this is important, this next line of questioning, because I think that all of us here sitting at the table can benefit from making sure that when we are posting these bids, our citizens have an opportunity to participate and being able to get engaged. So, Mr. Chairman, the question would be, is this one big area where bids are being posted all the time? So all across the city of Cleveland, there's one big bid posting board? Is that how it works, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair to the councilman, the city on its website has a place designated for bids and RFPs, and that's where we post these.
Right, so that's everything city.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's correct.
And that would be all of our subsidiary operations as well.
The chair to the councilman, I don't know if I could speak for all the other subsidiaries, but I do know our pieces and what I've seen on the site.
So, Mr. Chairman, can we request Mrs. Saban could find out all the bidding locations in the city of Cleveland for, is it split up or is it one big system? And the reason why I ask that, Mr. Chairman, because it's my understanding that even though we have a human resource department, other departments and institutions hire at will where they want to hire and whom they want to hire. So I know that it all doesn't come out of human resources. Is that correct, Mr. Chairman, to the director? If you're looking for someone, don't you have your own people who hire people and fire people?
Through the chair to the councilman, we have an internal group of folks who do interviews, but we do follow the city's policy, procedures, and their systems.
So do all of the people come from human resource? Come from the human resource, Mr. Cole's department? Does he put the information out and then it comes through to you guys?
Through the chair to the councilperson, we follow all of the processes that the city has aligned. We do our processes, and then it goes through the quality control checks that are through the city's human resources policies.
Okay, great. So, but on the issue of vending, we're not clear totally. Or on bids, rather, Mr. Chairman.
So through the
Correction.
chair to the councilman, as far as our processes, we go through whatever the city's processes are.
All right.
So we follow those.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. No further questions.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. Is there any other questions on ordinance number 103, 2024? The Healthy Vending Machine Initiative. Seeing no further questions, ordinance number 103, 2024 is approved. All right, last but not least, ordinance number 1384, 2023 by council members Bishop and Griffin. It's a departmental request, an emergency ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Works and Finance to contract with one or more temporary employment agencies to provide professional services to supply temporary and seasonal personnel for the Department of Public Works and the Project Clean program for various departments of the city for a period up to 1 year. Okay, Director.
Yes, sir.
Could you talk about this piece of legislation?
Yes, sir.
And how it differs from other pieces of legislation that we've seen in the past about this?
Thank you. To the chair. Passage of this legislation will allow general and any other fund allocations to the Division of Park Maintenance to clean and cut vacant lots, vacant structures, parks, and cemeteries. Passage of this legislation will allow CDBG fund allocation to the Division of Park Maintenance and Properties to hire seasonal workers to clean and cut city-owned land bank properties. One of the things that I would make mention of that's a little different is we're only doing 1 year. Because as I told the body when I was here before, I was really looking at going forward, is this a real model that we should be going forward with as it relates to a temporary employee approach with the amount of inventory that we have as it relates to vacant lots and vacant structures to cut. When we look at the equipment, when we look at the training time and the inconsistencies in staffing, we are looking at the possibilities of at least a hybrid approach or possibly bolstering, or at least my recommendation to the administration may be to move to a more full-time approach so we have more folk, quote unquote, with skin in the game with this, with our vacant lots and vacant properties and structures. So that's one of the big differences with that. As you are aware, we're continuing with our pilot for the vacant lot cutting or vacant structure cutting, and I have also enlisted Council Member Joe Jones has been very helpful in giving me some recommendations to look for assistance with those vacant lot contractors. With those being small businesses, small companies, we have been dealing with some of the learning curves that come with the different companies and their equipment and their technology and tying into ours. So we have some growing pains that we're going through. That's why it's still considered a pilot, but we are looking at some different things operationally as well in that group. But again, this keeps us moving, it keeps us functional. Also the passage now, and one of the reasons why we're here to you now, is we want to bring staff on earlier, as Councilmember Jones has really pressed upon me in coming back to the city. And we have been looking at the fact that both wards 1 and 2, with those areas getting the most precipitation in the city, is also reflecting, we're getting, obvious data. If it snows typically in the city, wards 1 and 2 typically have 2 or 3 more inches than everybody. Well, the grass is growing over there much faster as well. So what we want to do is get started a little earlier this year. So that's one of the other differences that we're working on this year. Okay,
okay, Director. So is there a reason why there is not a dollar amount attached to this piece of legislation?
To the chair, yeah. So with this contract, we give an estimated amount. We try to give an estimated amount. It's usually around $4 or $5 million. But every year it does change based on the amount of people who want to be involved. If council, as you know, council can have their own fund accrue. That may change. And so we try to put an estimated number on it. If it's not here, it's about $5 million.
It's about $5 million. Okay, so now can we kind of back up and say, and so the vacant lots, you just mentioned about contractors cutting vacant lots. So who actually cuts vacant lots? Are we trying to get private contractors to help us cut vacant lots, or is it the city crews cut vacant lots? And who cuts vacant structures? Is it the private contractors who cut in vacant structures, or do we have city crews cutting vacant structures? Who cuts the vacant structures?
So, to the chair, vacant lots are done solely by our internal crews, and the vacant structures are a hybrid between our internal crews and the onboarding of some local contractors.
So going forward, are we trying to get some help with cutting vacant lots also to supplement our own city crews?
At this time, I'm not looking in that direction only because of the equipment and the other nuances with the lots. We don't really have a deficit as it relates to some of the larger equipment. It's the structures that have really caused us to get behind otherwise. When we have to pull folk from the lots to keep up with the structures, that's what causes the lots to get behind. So what we're trying to do is supplement the structure cutting with the pilot program so that those folk are left to stay on their schedules for the right-of-way mowing and the lots. We will look at that as we go forward, but we can't do both at the same time. Would probably be a little unwieldy to manage.
Okay. In the executive summary, you have the CDB allocation funds that was listed, that was put up by council. Why are you putting those funds? Why is this in this piece of executive summary?
We just wanted to show all the funds that are actually being used for this contract. So if a war crew is out there, that war crew is paying for some folks through this contract. So we wanted to make sure that people
What was
understood
that? I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, I couldn't hear him.
Could you speak up?
Yeah, I'm sorry. So through Council Chair, we put those numbers in there so it could be understood what was actually being spent on this temporary contract.
Okay.
So when a war crew is solicited by a council person, they're paying for folks on this contract.
Okay. And the folks that we hire, that we put up the money for to hire, and on behalf of, and you guys hire them and you guys manage them, on Public Works does that. They cut only vacant structures?
So just want to make sure I'm clear on it. So these crews here, the war crews, that
Yes.
we're referring to those. So those war crews would do, it just depends on what's needed. They could do a structure. If we need them to do something in a lot, they may be able to do that if they have the equipment and the personnel to be able to do it.
Okay, is there any time where you have those folks that say I hire in Ward 2, I put up the money for, do you have them cross over and cut in Ward 1 or in Ward 4 and Ward 5? Do you have them do that? Is there at any time?
No.
They're solely
We keep them in the
dispatched in that? Okay. All right. All right, I'm going to open this up for questions from my colleagues. First, I'm going to go to Councilperson Richard Starr.
Thank you, Chair. One of the things that's always interesting to me around this time of period is obviously we know grass cutting, and it's amazing that we didn't get the same amount of snow that we used to get, which is good. It's a gift and a
Global
curse.
warming, yeah.
So one of the things that's interesting to me is when we talk about the service and the maintenance of these lots, and I know we do, as council members, do have different ward crews, and we put money up. At that price, why isn't that just already included into the budget? That's something that is very much odd to me, to the chair. We put up dollars to have a certain crew that work primarily in our area, in our neighborhoods, in our different wards. And I'm just trying to figure out, because and the reason why I'm asking this question is because every year we have a budget, and then at the end of the year, we have this influx of millions of dollars that the city, for whatever reason, didn't spend that money. And then I look at the dollars that we always have to put up just to get something good done. Obviously, I don't mind putting up money for things that's needed in the ward, but it's like, how do we be more modern with some things that we need to do? So as council members, we have to put funding up to do things that should be already included as part of public works. And if so, with this ordinance 1384, the total amount is it 5 million? Mm-hmm. I think I would like for us as a council just to say, add that 5 million into the budget and make it be part of something that we do. And then as council members, we can also, make some recommendation on some different folks in the community in our wards that can do the work. But I think this 5 million should be included already as a part of your department to get these things done, as well as just our support. So that's just something I just want to open the floor up through the chair to the directors to talk about what is the steps needed necessarily to be able to include this $5 million for the Project Clean program to be already included in the budget for us to get those type of things done.
Through the chair to the council member, I am totally open with alternative approaches to the funding sources. It's my understanding, and this I'm not truly well-versed in the approach, but I know this is to really go above and beyond what we typically can provide, and so those funds do really help. I do plan to look at that. One of the things that you all have been really pressing about was the fact of the cycles and really trying to get those in line. So that's kind of where I've been focused so far, but I'm definitely looking at the making sure that we have the right accountability even for those crews when they're in those wards, regardless of who's funding them, making sure that that they are making an impact throughout the city in those particular wards that you have allocated extra dollars to.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Starr. Next, I'm going to go to Councilwoman Marr.
Thank you. Good morning. I have a few questions on this. And first, just to try to level set what this contract is for the entire seasonal mowing crews through the Department of Public Works, through the chair. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, there, for the bulk of this contract is for that, but there are other things that this contract is also used for. So you've got for instance, in streets, the illegal dumping, that crew is kind of, they're functioning out of this pot of money. You've got, there may be some other pots where, for instance, traffic engineering sometimes will need additional labor. Sometimes we may use it for cleaning. We get some folks to clean our rec centers. So there's a variety, but the majority of this is going to go for cutting. Now, we've got cutting that's happening in vacant properties, but also in our parks. So we use a lot of these folks to cut our parks as well, keep our parks maintained.
Got it. Okay, so this is basically the broad contract. Previously with Snyder Blake, obviously you'll go out to bid for essentially the temporary crews through Public Works, through the chair to the director. Is that correct?
Through the chair to the council member, yes.
Okay. And am I correct in understanding that sort of where this has been a prior contract, and does it appear in the budget book? I'm looking under other contractual for the Division of Park Maintenance at $3.6 million last year. Do you know, is that the same line item as this money through the chair to the director?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, a portion of that is, so about 2.7 million of that is, and then you have the community development funding, you have council funding as well, and then other departments have their funding that goes with this as well. So it's not just public works, public finance also has a part of this as well.
Okay. So is it correct that we did not fully spend out last year's contract with Snyder Blake through the chair to the director?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, we actually ran out of money.
Okay.
for vacant properties. Yeah,
I see. So that's because of how there's a difference in funding. So this is labeled as $4.9 million for last year, but we only spent $3.7 in the budget book. but that's because they're from different sources, essentially. So we did run out of money
As
last
well
time.
as it through the chair to the councilwoman, that this funding also wraps into the new year.
Okay.
So what you saw was what happened at the end of that period, but it's going to wrap into the new year. We're going to use some of the funding that we have for the previous or this current contract. It'll extrapolate over 2 years.
Yeah.
So we're definitely going to spend it.
Okay. Well, I just wanted to make sure I understood it before I kind of got into the weeds.
Sure.
I tried to preview for the director. I have a number of issues here. I think the first one comes from just Snyder Blake itself as a temporary staffing agency. I'm wondering if you could lay out what someone who's hired through Snyder Blake, what they typically get per hour, and then what the city pays per hour to get that person through the chair.
So through the chair to the councilwoman, when the bids go out, we ask them to tell us what their bill rate will be and what they'll pay the employees. I believe there are mainly two different types of classifications that we have. We have a person who can drive and a person who's not required to drive.
Yeah.
The person who's not required to drive, I believe we're paying them about $12 an hour.
I think it's a little more now, but yes.
And I think 13 for the folks who can't
Yeah, it's
drive.
not. It's around there.
Yeah, so for the folks who can't drive, I think it's about 12, and the folks who do drive, about 13.
Yep. And then how much are you paying Snyder Blake per hour for that bill rate? For
So
those?
the bill rate through the chair to the councilwoman was about $16 per hour for the folks. It's about $16 and some change for the folks who don't drive, and about $17 and some change for the folks who do drive.
Okay. And I just want to clarify, these are obviously non-union positions, no benefits, but there are unions that operate within the departments that use these temporary services, correct, through the chair?
Through the chair to the councilwoman, that's correct.
On the point of salary?
Hold on just a minute.
So how much,
Hold on, Councilman Jones. You allowed?
Yes, I will.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman Jones.
on the point of salary, Mr. Chairman, so we subbed this out to Snyder Blake. We paid them $16. What was that figure?
I think it's about 1638, some change. Don't quote me on that. I can get the actual figure for you, but it's 16
And then how much do we actually pay the workers, Mr. Chairman?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's about $12 for the person who doesn't drive, about $13 for the folks who do drive.
So $12 for non-drivers and $13 for drivers.
I do just want to interrupt, Councilman, because
I'm finished. I just need
Oh,
that
okay.
clarification.
I don't think those are quite accurate, because I do think with Councilman Kelly's living wage fix, I think we got everybody at the city up higher than that. Is that correct? Yeah.
It should be, they should be paying their people what is legislated.
Yeah.
On that point, they're not doing that, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
Hold on, Councilman Jones. Okay, Councilwoman?
I do just want to make sure those are the updated numbers, because I do think that, particularly Councilman Kelly's legislative fix around the living wage was supposed to tackle specifically these, in part, these Snyder Blake subcontractors. So it's concerning. I want to make sure we get the numbers right. Either way, I just want to emphasize to the public and to the committee, we pay a premium to get these folks in, and all of us are really on the ground with our garages and with our folks, and we know there's a lot of turnover, and we know there's a wide variety of quality coming in through the temporary folks, and this could be a stable union job if we found a way to kind of keep people on year round. But it's interesting because we also always struggle to find snowplow drivers. So, how can we kind of keep people on? That's sort of my number one sort of red flag with this, is that I understand you're only going for a year with Snyder Blake, director, and I appreciate the clarity there that this is just a one-year contract. But I have an additional level of concern that I'll get to, which is that I think it is ridiculous that council members are expected to pony up individual funding,
right.
our limited discretionary funding, to
right.
pay for crews to provide what should be basic city services. And I have just truly the utmost respect for the people who do this work. I mean, as you know, I'm over at Dobbin South. I knew my ward crew last year. I know that although I paid supposedly for a 3-person crew all summer, I didn't have a 3-person crew. Last year when we had this conversation, I was open to renewing it for another year because I was promised that I would be given a set of essentially the work orders that had been completed by my designated ward crew. Never got them. And I would love to see that yet again, because I know I had a real hard worker on that crew. I know I had a guy who was doing absolutely everything he could, but why was I having to pony up Ward 12 discretionary dollars to get somebody to mow medians that weren't being done on the cutting cycle, pick up illegal dumping, handle a vacant lot that wasn't being done? You know, it should be, just like Councilman Starr said, baked into the overall budget that we have sufficient crews to get the work done. And I think there's a tricky swap here happening with these CDBG dollars, which, by the way, are only supposed to be used on specific types of lots in specific ways. There's a ton of restrictions around them. And we're having to do this complicated swapperoo to fund what looks like about a third of the entire contract for temporary services for the city. I mean, it looks like out of the CDBG funding, we're ponying up 1.2 million, and the overall contract is for 5 million. And by the way, it creates a disparity. And I'll be honest, I feel a little extorted on it, because if I don't pony up the money and then I can't get stuff done in the summer, I think my residents have every right to say, are you being a good council person? Are you doing your job? And so I feel like, okay, I gotta provide this money to make sure there's a ward crew, but what is that ward crew doing, and what are they actually delivering? And so I'll just say my preference out of this ordinance, I'm comfortable with it moving forward on the temporary staffing, because obviously we need to have a plan for the summer, but I would like to offer up an amendment to require that no individual ward can pay into or get special services out of the temporary crews. I think it should be equal across the city, and it should all be baked into the budget.
Well, you don't want to do it now, do you, Mr. Chairman?
Hold on, Councilman Jones. So, Rebecca, Councilwoman, you are offering up amendments?
Well, here's what I think I'd like to do. I think I'd like to hear from the other people on the committee. You know, I've kind of said my piece, and then if I would like to get back on the list, Councilman, and depending on how the conversation goes, if there's interest, I'll offer that up as an amendment. But I would like that to be the procedure.
All right. Okay. Thanks. Next, I'm going to go to Councilman Joe Jones. Are you ready, Councilman?
Yeah, I am. I'm well good and ready. I just, it's always something to see how people evolve over time. Now, I've been talking about this issue coming in day one and didn't understand why we as council members from this previous administration to the previous administrations in the past would have to pay for getting work done when we're controlling the purse string here and the entire budget. So it didn't make sense. I had to get oriented to the whole proposition of it all. We had, as the distinguished gentle lady, this is a fish that you need to fry. And the problem here is that our city has went through this process of having inferior services and poor quality services, and we've gotten locked into the mentality of not having better. And I agree with you, it feels kind of like you're extorted in a sense if you don't put in the money and you can't get your work done. And I went through the first couple of years of that, and then I rebelled against it. And I just felt that it's not something that we should be doing as council members sitting here at the table, that we have a program, how do we improve that program? And you may have heard me sit here and just go off on the table in years past concerning this entire, what's the word for it? Mess. There's no way to say it other than that. It's messy. It's not clear. And I appreciate the words that you tried to break this down about Snyder and Blake, because I've talked about them too here in the past. We can't, Mr. Chairman, to the director and to the assistant commissioner, keep beating that same horse and expecting to get something different. So the problem is the people you have on the inside of the city of Cleveland, whose mentality is not about the proposition of how we can improve productivity, how do we can satisfy our customers, and then lift our standard of quality, Mr. Chairman, so that we won't be having these same issues year in and year out. If if I'm in the business, Mr. Chairman, to the director of making a profit, and I keep getting calls from my customers, which is our constituents, about the poor quality work that's being done on these lots and the grass and not cutting the grass and the debris that's left behind, then I'm going to lose my customers. And then when I look at it, Mr. Chairman, from a purely business perspective, and your customers and your clients are constantly complaining, then I'm going to lose my job. Someone else is going to come in and take that job. So when it comes to vacant lots, Mr. Chairman, and when it, quite frankly, comes to public service, we ask you, do you need more money? And we're asking you that for a purpose of saying, okay, well, maybe you just don't have enough money to do what needs to get done. So with that being said, I'm glad Mr. Saban and Joe Titron walked into the room, because this is one of those issues where we really have to bring the bull down to the horn and figure this out. So it's my understanding we don't know how much money we're going to put in the program, Mr. Chairman. Is the $4.9 million what we're talking about?
Director.
Yeah, through the chair to the councilman, if all things stay, just based on what happens here at this table, but if things stay status quo, it's about $5 million.
$5 million. So have we used all that money from last year?
Through the chair to the councilman, I will say in vacant properties we have.
Have we used all of the $5 million?
Through the chair to the councilman, again, some of that $5 million goes to other departments.
Okay, but have we used it all, whether it went to other departments or not? Did we spend all of the money that we're allocating to you here
Through the
from
chair,
last year?
Through the chair to the councilman, as far as public works is concerned, it is not all spent because it wraps around. So we use most of it during the current season. Then we save money to go in there in March and do kind of things like clean up and kind of get in front of everything. So it's not all spent today, but the goal is to have it spent by the time the next contract's in place.
So I guess, that's a no, and you're hoping to spend it. So the question, Mr. Chairman, is at the end of when your new monies come in, from last year, did you spend all the money? The year before, did you spend all that money, or did it go back into the general fund pot?
Through the chair to the councilman for public works, for vacant properties, we always spend all of it.
I see. So, Mr. Chairman, what is the breakdown? Because and I appreciate my colleague, Mrs. Rebecca Maurer, for talking about
More, Councilman.
more. I'm sorry, I've gotten so used to saying that, and you just now corrected me. More. So Rebecca Moore talked about the budget as it relates to the funds and some funds used here. So how does that work? And then can you get that matrix for us, or the chart of how all this is broken down? And then how much money are we using for vacant lots and now let me just ask this, is vacant lots separate from vacant parcels or from vacant properties?
Through the chair to the councilman. So for vacant properties, which is structures and vacant lots, we have about
So it's all together, Mr. Chairman, to the director.
Through the chair to the councilman for, yes, the funding. So for vacant properties, for both lots and structures, in the general fund, we have about $1.3 million.
So we spend $1.3 million overall for everything in there?
And then you have community development, CDBG money, it's about $1.2 million.
So we got $2.5 million for vacant properties and structures?
And then if you add the war crews, that makes it a little bit more, just depending on how many war crews you have.
So, but putting them to the side, we have a total of $2.5 million for vacant properties and vacant structures.
Yep, approximately in that number. Through the chair to
And that money, do you have a breakdown of how that money is spent? From last year's
through the chair to the
reports?
councilman, when you say a breakdown,
Yeah, how you spent the $2.5 million? What's the breakdown? What did you spend $2.5 million on?
through the chair to the councilman, we would show that we spent it in either vacant properties or in parks or in our greenhouses or in our cemeteries. That's how we would break it down.
Okay, so then now we're talking about more. So, and this was, see, and here's the problem, Mr. Chairman, because this is where the confusion comes in, because when you got to get down deep on this. So I asked a simple question. How much money is being spent on vacant properties and vacant lots? I was told $1.3 million here, another $1.2 million, bringing the total to 2.5 million. These are vacant properties. So then you're telling me we're going over to another place to spend this money, or this money's being spent somewhere else, this 2.5? Is it being totally committed to vacant structures and properties?
Through the chair to the councilman, so if I'm confused you, I apologize. The 2.5 million is strictly for vacant properties.
Okay. Nothing else?
Nothing else.
No greenhouses, as you were about to say?
No.
Okay. So, Mr. Chairman, the question is, again, what's the breakdown of the 2.5 million? How you're spending it, every penny? Do you have a breakdown for that?
Through the chair to the councilman, I do not have a breakdown on how we spend within the program.
We need to get that, Mr. Chairman, because if we're going to resolve the issue of why we're so horrible in cutting vacant lots and vacant parcels, we need to know how and where the money's going. And we won't be able to correct the issue here at the table if we don't know how the money's and who's getting the monies and what they're actually doing with it. So how much money is going to personnel, who's that personnel, how much money is going to equipment, what's going into overhead costs, all that entire breakdown, Mr. Chairman, should be brought here to the table.
So through the chair to the councilman, the 2.5 million is entirely labor. There are no other costs other than labor.
Okay, well, give me that then. I want to see it in writing.
Okay, that is.
So I want to see where it's going.
Through the chair to the councilman, it's all going to Snyder Blake. That 2.5 million.
Okay, so you're giving Snyder Blake $2.5 million for labor.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's correct.
Okay, so then now Snyder Blake is not union.
Through the chair to the councilman, that is correct.
Okay, so $2.5 million go to Snyder Blake. Snyder Blake, and this is just, so there's a bigger budget here, Mr. Chairman. That's the point I'm trying to make. So if we're talking $2.5 million for Snyder Blake, what is the total breakdown of how much money we're putting in the vacant lots system? So that this $2.5 million just goes for that. So how much money do we have in the whole total program, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
No, he wants to know for everything overhead.
And Mr. Chairman, a records request if our people can, we know that 2.5 million is going into Snyder Blake. The council person is asking for that information. Council person is asking for the information of the total budget of what's being spent on vacant lots and properties. How many employees do we have, Mr. Chairman, coming from Snyder Blake for the $2.5 million? Mr. Chairman, how many union employees are being paid out of whatever fund, and how much that total breakdown? So I guess, Mr. Chairman, the director doesn't, or the assistant director doesn't know, how big is that department?
Through the chair to
financially.
Through the chair to the councilman, I don't have the exact figure, but this is a calculation we did earlier last year. So I do have that we can get to this body.
Okay, so what is that estimate? You don't have to be direct, exact. Yeah. What's the preliminary estimate for vacant lots and vacant structures?
So through the chair to the councilman, I would prefer to give you the number that I have. I don't want to.
Okay, so Mr. Chairman, the request of information is to get the thorough, fundamental breakdown of whatever the figure is, Mr. Chairman, that the Assistant Commissioner has given us on this department, how much money that is, at which he doesn't know right now. You couldn't even give me an estimate all this time. You've been sitting here, Mr. Chairman, working for the city. You couldn't give me an idea?
Through the chair to the councilman, I prefer to give you a number that's accurate.
So is it more than $5 million?
Through the chair to the councilman,
more than $15 million?
It's not more than $15 million.
$10 million?
Through the chair to the councilman.
So $8 million? Well, because, see, I'm sitting here, but I do my job, and I got 3 divisions of business. I can tell you every division and how much money they're getting in. I can break it all down for you like night and day on the table. You work for us, Mr. Chairman, and you can't tell me how much it is. And I'm sitting here, Mr. Chairman, having to deal with these people every day, talking about the reasons why their stuff is not cut and getting my soul beaten out me every single day. And I'm sitting here at the table, and I'm asking you a question. You can't tell me. That's the reason why I said, Mr. Chairman, with a cup of cake and some coffee, could you please be so kind to be prepared when we're asking questions on legislation?
Through the chair to the councilman, we'll get you the information. That is, we are not trying to hide anything.
Well, I'm going to
It's
take your picture,
a matter
Mr.
of-
Chairman, and put it out and post it in the neighborhood and say, this is the guy you need to call to get your stuff cut. Because at
totally
the end of the day, those people
Council-
out in my
Council-
neighborhood,
Council-
Mr.
Councilman
Chairman.
Jones.
Through the chair to
Jones.
the council member, I take full responsibility for the things in the department. I have inherited quite a few circumstances within this program that I am trying my best to turn around as quickly as possible. Some of these things are fiscal, and some of them that I don't have actually control over, and some of them are based on some requests that I need to make after I do some assessments of things. As you are aware, I came in the middle of the season when I first showed up here, and I mentioned that I had to see some things. There's some cultural issues, some operational issues, equipment issues, and also fiscal issues that I have to review and assess correctly to make the right recommendations to the administration to move this program forward. And I do plan to do so. There's no one person that's going to fix this, and there's no one person that broke it. There is a inventory that continues to fluctuate that we have to move things around for, and I don't think the operational unit probably matched really what the inventory out there was initially. So there's a lot of moving pieces that I have to work through to turn this around, but I am committed. I am I don't hide, as you all know, that I'm always transparent. We talked for quite a while Friday evening.
Yeah, we
on
did.
this. And so I'm totally willing and totally able to turn this thing around. But I do just ask for just a little patience, a little bit of grace to be able to anticipate and deal with some of the moving pieces. With me having 9 divisions, with a multiplicity of programs that run, we are working our best to turn this ship around, but it will take some time.
Mr. Chairman, I think I'm not here trying to beat you up, Director. I know you're doing the best you can. God help your soul, because you inherited a mess. For 15, 20 years, a big, giant, super bucket of mess. So in order to change that mess, Mr. Chairman, you're going to have to fire some folks, because their mentality is not improving the conditions. I'm sitting here at this table 6 years in, and I'm beating a horse that ain't moving an inch. And then when it comes to trying to have resolution, you just got a bad crop of folks. You're going to have to bring some more folks in who are happy to have a job, who are going to get out there and work day in and day out. And so in order to prove the conditions, Mr. Chairman, you know, like I said earlier, I'm here with you. But if I'm asking questions, Mr. Chairman, to the assistant director, and he can't give me nothing at the table, not only on this piece of legislation, but previous pieces of legislation that we've had before us here, it doesn't do me any good as a council member trying to resolve issues that are having a very negative impact on my neighborhood, destroying the quality of life for my citizens, and driving my citizens to leave out of the city of Cleveland, and then hearing them telling me that they're depressed at the fact that they have to live next to vacant lots, that they have to beg to get cut, and 6 to 10 weeks later, maybe, if they're lucky, they'll get a cut. And then, Mr. Chairman, on top of that, I have to go out there myself and then go and cut those lots, just to get relief off my shoulders from those people having those issues. And I've had to do that, Mr. Chairman, in the past. So my question is, Mr. Chairman, not to get off the point here, we got $2.5 million of labor here that does the vacant lots and the cuts. So we don't know what that total budget is. I would like to have that information before the budget. And then, Mr. Chairman, my suggestion is you need a whole group of new commissioners and directors and assistants and folks that are going to be a command staff that know what they know what to do. They're hitting the ground, they know this, they got this, they're in their background, it's in their blood. They're finna go and shake it up. I'm not a happy camper, Mr. Chairman, that we're spending $2.5 million on labor, and we're paying people $12 an hour. And we got Mr. Danny Kelly, who has worked to try to increase that amount. And Mr. Chairman, to Mr. Kelly, how much is that did you increase it to, if I may ask?
May I jump into?
Everything through the chair. Okay.
It's
I did.
dependent
Said Mr.
upon.
Kelly.
Okay. It's dependent upon what the national average wage is, what's the living wage, and I believe it would be a little over $15, not $13.
Through the chair to the council member, on that point, we will go back and check that number because I thought it was closer to that as well. And also, I just want to make mention to the chair, we do have staff that is watching and preparing the answers for anything that we don't have at the table. So we do prepare to make sure that we can turn around anything that you may ask. As you probably understand, the stack of paperwork, to try to anticipate the questions can be a bit unwieldy, but I do take your point. We will do better going forward.
And then, Mr. Chairman, you had a previous commissioner that I wanted to talk to about how to set the program up. Setting the program up is very detailed and specific. If you don't do it right, it fails, or if the people who are doing it and they don't want to do it, they want to make sure it fails. You fail 1 or 2 years in a row, and then the city says, okay, we're going to discontinue it because it's not successful. It's having the right people with the right mentality organize the system. And I submit to you, Mr. Chairman, that you didn't have that. And I don't think that you got that now. And so at the end of the day, neither of those people have really fundamentally reached out to me. And when I tried to make suggestions of what they need to do to get in the program, I've been shut down. So at the end of the day, if they're really serious about improving those lots need to be, those vacant lots, they need to be cut more than every 8 to 10 weeks. They need to be cut twice a month, and you can do that and save money and cut overhead costs. Don't worry about paying gas or worry about your labor costs. It can all be taken care of. You can bite a big chunk out of this program. If you got 40,000 structures, you put the right program in, you should be able to buy 8,000 to 10,000 off in your first year, and then another 15,000 in your second year. Then it frees up, Mr. Chairman, your resources to combine and develop and build a better in-house machinery that can take on this situation. But if you got people who got lead in the pants and they're not moving on this piece here, you will never get it done. And when they don't reach out to someone who's been there and done that, then you're in trouble. The onus is all the liability, all the insurance falls upon the contractors. None of that falls upon the city. We're cutting 120 senior citizens' grass in my neighborhood alone with 3 contractors. Technically, all we need is 2. And if we had one really good one, we just need 1. So if we're doing 120 cuts, and we're doing it at the and this is 120 customers 3 times a month that we're cutting them. If we're doing that with the little 40,000 or 45,000 that you want me to put in your program to help with my vacant lots, and we're doing that in our neighborhood, can you imagine what that would look like if we're doing something like that throughout the entire city of Cleveland, how we're really fundamentally cutting that cost? And Mr. Chairman, let me say to the Assistant Commissioner, I don't mean to be disrespectful. I apologize if I offended you. But I'm very passionate here on this end of the table. And when I sit here year in and year out and I'm getting the same results and no difference is happening, and I'm asking you how much money you need, and you wasn't here on all those years, it was someone else sitting in the chair answering. So you're new to some degree. But the other, you've been here, but you've heard me talk about this issue for quite some time. And still getting the same results. So there needs to be that kind of change that needs to happen. And so all I'm saying to Mr. Chairman, to the Assistant Commissioner, this is no disrespect to you, but I'm sitting here, I need something to happen. And then when I'm asking certain questions and can't seem to get the answers, there's always 3-card Molly shuffle at the table. I got a problem.
Through the chair to the council member, again, I do appreciate your comments, and as you know, and we've talked, and I plan to work with you a little more on some of these programs going forward. We didn't have a lot of the fiscal data that we probably could have had today, but we've merged into some operational conversations as well. But I would like to mention, though, if you kind of look at some of the things, we have improved in some of those areas on the vacant lots and structures. We're working on some things, but we did get a little better and move the ball. So I do hope that at the end of this season, you'll be able to be proud of some of the movements that we made. But I don't think it was the same this past year, especially when we look at the complaints and the overall calls. They weren't the same.
No, you've
this
been
past
improving.
year.
That's why I like you,
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman. You have, let me just say this because I don't want you to, when I get on the phone and call you, you have been very responsive, unlike your predecessor before you, where I'd call and not get anything taken care of. You have been very responsive. I appreciate your responsiveness. You just need to tighten up the rest of the department. And so, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to sit down with you and the director, because I got, after what I went through last week, I'm committed to understanding that they don't want to do anything different. It's going to be the same old show. So I don't see no difference coming out of that spirit that I had to deal with. And so I would say this, Mr. Chairman, I thought about it, and I'm going to put a full press court piece, and Mr. Chairman, I'd like for you to be there, a full course piece right on the table showing you how you're going to save your money and who those particular players need to come in to be able to make the difference here in the city of Cleveland. Not yesteryear, not 2 years from now, this summer, this season.
Okay, all right. You done, Councilman
I'm done,
Jones?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay. We appreciate your words and your passion, Councilman Jones. We know you are advocating for your citizens, and we know you keep advocating for your community, so we appreciate your work. Director, you want to make a response? Any response to Councilman Jones? Go ahead.
Through the chair to the councilman, and I feel your passion. I want to say this. I worked with Richard Silva. I was his deputy commissioner, and we did a lot of things to make this program work. I want you to understand I have a passion. I'm out there every summer. I know all the players. I know the people. I talk to the people. So I don't want you to think that we don't have a care or desire to do this. We do. Under our new director, it has been a drive. But I've always had this drive. I've always wanted. We have a program that has swelled, and we can throw money at it, but there's just a lot more to it than just throwing money at it. There's a lot about equipment. There's a lot about logistics. There's legal things that have to be considered. There's partnerships. There's so many things. And so when I hesitate to give you an answer, it's not because I don't want you to give you an answer. I just want to make sure I give you an answer that's accurate, that you can go back and say, hey, this actually makes sense. I don't want to give you a number I just kind of threw out there, and when you go back to try to put it together, it doesn't work. So if you see me hesitate, it's not because I'm trying to hide. I just want to make sure that I give this body full, transparent information that's been vetted out. And sometimes when we come to this body, you ask questions that we hadn't thought about, haven't been prepared for. It's not that we don't have it, we just didn't bring it with us. So I want you to understand that we're partners in this. We are definitely partners in this. And I'm doing everything, I will do everything in my power. But I want you to understand that I had to make sure I got that off my chest, because I understand your passion. I understand this entire body's passion. I've been out to some of these, and I get the people come to me. They know me. They call me. They come see. I get the calls too. I may not be in the same boat as you are, but I still get those calls. I get those people coming out from the workers, from the residents, from leadership. But again, as I mentioned, it is going to take time, as the director pointed out. There's a lot of moving pieces with this program that have to be considered. This program started off as just vacant lots years ago, and over time it's grown to vacant properties and vacant structures and all the things that happen, all the inventory that's been added to it. And so the director and I have been really working through trying to find the way to actually be able to do this. It's going to take time, because this is a huge thing that has to get worked through. But I wanted to say that, so I'll rest with that.
All right, thank you, Director. Councilman Brian Casey?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, to the director, so this is for vacant properties, vacant lots for the summer, correct?
Through the chair to the council person, yes.
This isn't for parks, right? This isn't to do parks.
Through the chair to the councilman, it does include parks.
It does include parks,
Yes.
okay. So, Mr. Chairman, to the director, why Snyder Blake?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's my understanding that they were the best bidder. I'm hoping that some other players come to the table for this next one, but I have no preference for Snyder Blake.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, to the director, here's what the feedback that I received. And this is information that I don't believe would be too hard to get. I'm sure you don't have it right now. But I'd like to know the attendance of Snyder Blake last year. I'd like to know the number of individuals who called off, how much time called off. I mean, this is what I'm hearing why it bogged down last year, right? Was because the people that were coming from Snyder Blake, and I don't know for sure, that's why I'm going to ask you guys to confirm, they had a difficult time showing up for 5 days straight, right? Whether you know that or not, I'm sure you do, but that's one of the reasons that it got bogged down. So I'm just wondering why weren't we prepared sooner to go out for RFP for this? Or are we still under contract, and is this a renewal one? Is this a renewal one?
Through the chair to the councilman, it's a one-year contract, so this is up for renewal now. We're in the
All right,
process of doing it.
Mr. Chairman, to the director, then when was the last time we went out for RFP on this?
Through the chair to the councilman, it was last year.
Okay.
Yep.
So this is just to renew that? And then what?
Through the chair to the councilman, we're doing put out a brand new RFP, solicited new vendors.
This is a new vendor?
We're attempting to solicit now as we speak.
All right. So, Mr. Chairman, to the director, if this is the RFP to go out for bid, why are we waiting till now to do it? Or are we just renewing? Now you got me confused.
No.
Are we going out for RFP? Are we going out for RFP, or is this to renew Snyder Blake for another year? Mr. Chairman, to the director.
Through the chair to the councilman, we actually started the process in November.
Okay.
We sent out the RFPs in November.
Okay.
We actually had the meeting with all the folks who turned in their RFPs in January.
Okay.
We're actually scoring those RFPs right now.
Okay, so it's not necessary, Mr. Chairman, to the director, it's not necessarily that this piece of legislation is for Snyder Blake.
Correct. To the chair to the councilman, that is correct.
Okay, I thought we were renewing.
No.
Okay, so this is to go out for RF. You already went out for RFP. This is to enter into a contract with them. Mr. Chairman, to the director, how many people submitted a bid?
Through the chair to the councilman, we had 3 separate contractors.
Okay, and were any of those I'm just curious. Any of those contractors who submitted this do this for a living? Were they actually landscape companies or anything like that, or were they all temp agencies?
Through the contractor, I'm sorry.
To the contractor, not me.
Through the chair to the councilman. No, these are all professional temporary agencies that have been on this.
All right, and then Mr. Chairman, to the director or the commissioner. So in the RFP, they don't have to have their own equipment. They use our own equipment. They use all of our equipment, correct?
That's correct.
All right. Do we ever think, has the city ever thought about hiring permanent seasonal employees? We go through this every year, right? And I'll be honest with you, and I'm with Councilwoman Moore. I have a hard time ponying up dollars that should be a city service anyways. But aside from that, I didn't even meet the guys last year. I had no idea who they were. I had no idea what they did. I just gave the money in hopes that held my breath that the work would get done. And and myself and Councilman Slife split a crew because there's not the workload up there isn't as heavy. But I couldn't tell you what was done. And I think that's an unjust thing because if people come back to me and they hear, hey, you spent $20,000 on a crew to clean, it would be nice to say, well, look, they took care of 50 lots. They took care of 25, 40 houses, whatever the numbers are, so that we can justify that. I don't even know if they were in Ward 16 last year. Any response, Mr. Chairman, to the director?
Through the chair to the council member, that's kind of my point. From an operational perspective, I don't necessarily support this approach. So I'm in agreement. I just don't know what it on the fiscal side what that actually meant and why it was done that way. But I would prefer that all those staffing be, put into the main pot so that it could be moved around as necessary with the actual data that we have as far as the structures and the lots and the things like that. We should be moving the staff accordingly versus, having them sparsed off and, like you said, can't find work, or maybe that work doesn't, equate to the dollars spent. So I would prefer that those to be all in the general pot, and that we could, disperse based on the actual work out there. So I agree with you, but I just, again, don't know on the fiscal side what that breaks or what that does do. The other part that I would make mention of when we talk about this topic of those cuttings, comparing just the cutting of a occupied home versus a vacant is much different, because when we get to these locations, we send and this was one of the things that we had with the local contractors. They were good cutters or whatever, it wasn't an issue there, but when they got to the location, there was a refrigerator in the middle of the yard. And so now you got to call somebody else, or there's other dynamics that really go to that and really impact the timing when we talk about the vacant lots and vacant structures. We're finding boats in backyards, and I mean all kinds of different things that are slowing us down and impacting that work, and all things that I have to take into account to make decisions on going forward. So I do agree with you on the fiscal side, and I would like to be able to better put together a more comprehensive approach that really speaks to focusing on the data and letting it drive more of the operation going forward. So I'm in agreement and looking forward to turning that around and doing it a little different. But again, I just want to stress that I don't know the fiscal part of it and how that would impact any of that.
That's fair. And Mr. Chairman, to the director, then what is the time cycle for vacant properties and vacant lots as far as cuts?
Through the chair to the councilman, just to make sure when you say the time cycle.
Right, so it gets cut one time. How long passes until you get back out for the second cut?
Right now, not 10 years. Through the chair to the councilman, right now it's about 7 weeks.
All right,
That's our cycle.
And Mr. Chairman, to the director and the commissioner, and this is an honest question, right? Do you think that that's fair to the residents of the city of Cleveland who are living next door to these or have to drive by it? I personally cut my lawn once a week, right? My neighbor doesn't cut it as often, but it's more than once every 7 weeks. Is that service that we're providing the residents of the city of Cleveland worth the bang for the buck that we're getting for it?
Through the chair to the council member, I don't know if I would term fair with it, but I will say it is right now, unfortunately, where we are as it relates to all of the things that, whether it be staffing, equipment, and the like, and even weather and things of that sort, to be able to cycle the city with the with the inventory. With that being said, also, being able to assess what the expectation is, like whether it be 1 week, 2 weeks, is something that we would have to, take a look at. But my goal is to keep shortening that timing down. That's the whole point of the pilot contractors, is to kind of put them in there to kind of cut that time. I'm looking to try to get that into 4 weeks is my goal right now, to try to get enough contractors in to get that down to so that those are cut at least once a month. But right now, based on the equipment, staffing, weather, and all the other nuances, we're really at that 7 weeks. But now when I got it, we were at 9. So we've moved the ball. That's why I was kind of saying that I won't necessarily accept that we're moving backwards or we haven't improved, because we have gotten a little better, but we have a ways to go. The other part I would make mention of, I don't think that the previous approach to it really was focused on the inventory. If Ward 2 has more lots, they should have more crews in them. Or Ward 1, wherever those are, we should be chasing the work and not having folk sitting idle on, different parts of the city, cycling. And then that's what causes such an issue, or the thought that we cut the west side more than the east side, because that crew was over with less inventory on the west side, circling and cycling and cutting more times than on the east side, because we didn't have. And so that was one of the things I looked at, is really when we bring those folk in, where do they go? Not just looking at it, as much as the service that we always want to provide is equitable, the reality is the inventory isn't equitable. So the operation needs to actually flex to the actual inventory. And so all those things I'm really taken back because, again, I never want to come to this body asking for funding if I got a bad operation. Because if you give me the money and then I don't deliver, then I'm back at the table getting beaten again. Right. So it's my intent to really take a look at this operation and then recommend to the administration, this is what I can do if you give me this. And I think that's the best way to do it versus just coming and saying, I need $10 million and then can't get the work done.
And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director, what's the bigger obstacle? Is it equipment or is it manpower? I asked the director, the chairman. We answered the question.
I would say.
Councilman Jones, yeah, Councilman Jones, Councilman Casey has the floor. Okay, all right. So let's let the director answer the questions. Go ahead, director.
Through the chair to the councilman, I think the best way to answer that is that I got a feeling that it's both very close to one another, but the problem that I really struggle with is the operation. The operation hasn't really, because it's kind of disjointed to the point that we're kind of reforming it, it's kind of hard to say which one is driving the issue. I think right now I would say probably manpower speaks a little further to it, but not necessarily so much the lack thereof, the actual consistency of using those temp employees and also their skill set when they come in and their willingness to work. So those are the things in that manpower, underneath that manpower umbrella, I would probably speak to. But equipment is a very close second, I believe.
Okay. And then, Mr. Chairman, to the director or the commissioner, are you guys currently hiring for seasonal help right now?
Through the chair to the councilman, we are.
So if we know somebody who's looking for employment for the summer, is it on the website? Is it?
So through the chair to the councilman, just depending if it's any kind of request that you have, you can send it to us and we can disseminate it so you don't have to work through a maze. But we do through the temporary labor contract, that'll go out on our website. As far as what we do internally, that'll be through NeoGov. But again, if you have individuals that you want to try, you can route them to us. We can figure out how to get them to where they need to go.
Okay. And Mr. Chairman, right now I'm not a fan of this piece of legislation, only because I don't think that we're getting the bang for our buck out of Snyder Blake, or we didn't last year. I can't say about going forward. But I really don't believe that we got the bang for our buck because I think we ran into an issue of individuals not showing up on a consistent basis. And that's what we're paying for. We're paying for work to be done. We need to figure out how to get that work done and get it done in a more timely manner. I know I personally ran into 2 guys last year that there's no way in God's green earth I would have ever hired them to do anything, right? And that was just their poor attitude, and you see it, right? They show up, but then they don't want to work.
Yeah, okay.
And then it leaves our full-time employees who have to supervise them in a very difficult situation that we shouldn't be putting our full-time employees in either, right?
Through the chair to the council member, I agree wholeheartedly with you. And this also matriculates to the fact that when you ask, when am I going to get to someplace, I can never tell you because I never know.
I get it.
If they're coming to work or not, or if they're going to come to work and work.
Right. And then my last question is just, Mr. Chairman, to the director, could we get that attendance from Snyder Blake before finance? At least by 7 o'clock council tonight.
We'll reach out to them.
That'll sway my vote on the floor tonight. I'll get it through here, but I can't guarantee on the floor tonight or at finance. So if you could try to get that, I mean, it should be readily available.
Through the chair to the councilman, would retention rates suffice, or are you looking?
No, I want to know. Okay, listen. How many? Another question. I don't mean to take up my time, Mr. Chairman.
No, go ahead, Council.
How many seasonal employees did Snyder Blake provide for us last year? Okay. If we know that, then the attendance rate of those individuals.
Work on
That's
Yes,
fair.
sir.
Okay.
Through the chair to the
I don't
councilman,
want to make
yes.
it too difficult, but I think we should know that before we decide to move this amount of money along. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, go back to Councilman Jones.
Mr. Chairman, thank you.
Hold on, Councilman Jones. I'm sorry. We'll go to Councilman Anthony Harris.
Thank you. I know I had to step out for a minute, but thank you, Mr. Chair, to the members of the committee, and I know the department. Listen, I like the program, so I disagree with my colleagues. Do I like the fact that it takes 7 weeks to get through these lots in this process? Of course not, right? But unfortunately, that's what we're dealing with, and so we need to trust the director and his staff to try to figure out a way to get us to a better point where we're doing at least a cut every 4 weeks, as the director just indicated. As it relates to Ward 10, do I think that the summer crews, this is not counting the ward crew, the summer crews did a perfect job? Absolutely not, because no job is done perfect, right? There's always going to be missed locations. There's going to be locations not on the list, especially if they're new coming on or coming into the system. So understanding that, then of course it wouldn't be perfect. The issue for me is, what is the response after that information is given? And the response has been top notch. If I send something in to Tamisha or Todd, or I don't remember the other guy who took over the unit leader, or yourselves, and you'll send somebody back, an inspector, to look over the work that was been missed, and then you immediately get somebody back out there to clean up the work, right? So I don't have any issue there, right? As it relates to the war crews, I do not agree with the fact of us limiting any other council person to have the ability to add an additional war crew to the budget. As much as we would like it to be a part of the general fund process now, we don't have to add money, that everything is going to be done the way it should be all the time, and that's just not realistic based on what we have now, right? And so I would not be in support of limiting any council member the ability to add money in. My war crew does the job, right? I need the war crew, because the war crew stays in the ward after the system as a whole has left and gone to another area, another ward. So I would want that war crew to stay in the ward to take care of right-of-ways, to take care of sidewalks, to take care of the gravel that kicks up on the sidewalks, right? Because the streets are in bad shape, and so the students are walking down the street and they're trying to navigate over gravel sidewalks. And so those are the functions that the war crew helps provide once the system as a whole has left and moved to another area. So, the war crew has been good in Ward 10. Is there areas for improvement? Absolutely, right? Absolutely. But when Ty has come to the ward meetings and he has heard residents complain about back alleyways over on 112th Street, that lines the park there, who went down there and got it done? Who went down there and got it done? The war crew went and got it done. Because if they were not there in Ward 10, we would have taken folks out of the systematic approach, right? You'd have had to pull people out. But because the war crew exists, they can go and be dispatched quicker to handle some of those nuisance issues that may arise, at some point. So, I think having a war crew works, at least in Ward 10. I'm a no vote on anything that's going to amend this ordinance to restrict other council members' the ability to add a war crew if they so choose. And this is if you choose, and that's up to you whether you choose to do so or not. This does not say you have to add a war crew or fund a separate crew. I mean, this is giving you the ability to do so. So just because someone don't want to fund it, may not want to tell their residents why they're funded or not funding it, that's on them to deal with their residents, right? But at least for mine, I'll tell them that when I'm asked, I say, hey, we have a separate war crew. Or the staff at the meetings will say, hey, Councilman Harrison provides a separate war crew. We can work with him to get them dispatched, get them out into the neighborhood to take care of the issues that you have. So, I know that all things are not perfect. I know there's room for improvement. There's things we could do along the way to help this. I would like to see a shorter time period as it relates to the cycle of cuts that happens throughout the city of Cleveland. If get into a 4 weeks every month, man, that would be amazing. And then at that point, maybe we don't need to have. Maybe I don't have to fund a separate war crew, because now the grass is being cut a little more often. Weeds grow faster than grass, right? And so, the crew can go and cut down the weeds along Nottingham Road or Arlington or 180 Road around the bus stop. They're this tall, right?
Yeah, yeah.
In another week and a half, you know, what happens? They're starting to sprout up again, right? And so the crew's got to go back out there in another couple of weeks to do it. Imagine if we had to wait 7 weeks for that. You know, just like we hear, we get our butts kicked, you know, with these, with what's being done, what's not being done. You know, just imagine, you know, what we would get if we didn't have that ability, you know, to dispatch folks if we choose to have a war crew to take care of some of those issues. So, listen, I hear everybody. Everyone, each his own. Everyone has their own thoughts and feelings. I'm just sharing my thoughts and feelings regarding this. Only gripe I would say I would really have is the fact that my unit leader, you know,
Mr. Ingram?
Mr. Ingram was taken away from the Collinwood yard, and you know, if I can have him back, I would really like to have him back because he was amazing. I didn't listen. When you talk about proactive, right? That man was back up in cuts and corners that I just didn't think existed anymore, right? And residents were just so happy with the work that he was doing in the neighborhoods. He was touching things that people had just left untouched for years, right? And they appreciated him for that, right? So if you know, if voting to amend this means I get Mike Ingram back, then I'm happy to do that. But you know, that's the only gripe I would say I would have with the program. In addition to wanting a shorter period for cycles, you know, and I think that's all of us across the table and all across the city. We want to see more grass cuts more frequently.
Through the chair to the councilman, if it's any consolation, we're trying to find a way to put Mr. Ingram across the entire city so he can have impact. You'll get some of them, right? You'll get some of them back, but that's to that point, you know, the director said we are trying to find ways to get to that for a week. And it is sometimes about balancing the personnel and putting the right people in the right place to be able to make the decisions, to be able to do those kind of things, so.
Right. And go ahead.
I'm sorry, through the chair to the council member, and that's kind of like the point that you make about Mr. Ingram, getting him to the point where we can make more of him, you know, to scale that actual approach. Gentlemen on your side of town is the same. We've worked with him. They both are working together to try to look at, you know, what we were doing on the west side to maybe scale it and apply it on the east side as well. So we're taking that staff that you pointed me to him when I came back to be able to say, hey, what are you doing? What are you doing differently that we could scale across the city? Right. So you are definitely helping inform that process. I appreciate it.
No, I appreciate that, and I'll close out with this, Mr. Chair. You know, yes, he is great. Hey, you know, if it means he's going to help the system overall across the city of Cleveland, then have at it. You know, but you know, residents have noticed the difference, right?
Okay.
When Mike has stepped away. I mean, I'll just be honest with you.
Understood.
And this is nothing I haven't told you, you know, in our passing, but not saying all things are bad, but they have noticed a difference, right? As it relates to the level of attention to detail, right? When his tractors hit that street on that main corridor, they're not just cutting the grass. That trash is going to be gone soon, and the hand crews are going to come back and take care of the weeds and the sidewalks and the curbs as well. So he's going to make sure when you look down that street, you don't see high weeds coming through the sidewalks, but the lots are cut. Yeah. You know, I mean, that makes a difference. That makes you feel different, right? So, you know, listen, I am all in to make this better and figure out what we need to do to make this better, as I know my colleagues are, you know, but, you know, we definitely want to see a slight change in that 7 weeks.
Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Hairston. We're going to go next to, we're going to go back to Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Whoever's that working in Anthony Harrison Ward, I need him in Ward 1, especially if they are cutting and cleaning like that. My question real quick, Mr. Chairman, do we know how much it costs us to cut on the average vacant lot versus a vacant structure? Are they both the same cost?
So through the chair to the councilman, we do it by 7 cents per square foot. It's about the cost that we have.
So how much is our vacant, what's the average cost on a lot, a mom and pop lot, 40 foot by 140?
Cost through the chair to the probably about $250.
How much?
Through the chair to the councilman, about $250.
It's costing $250 every time you cut
For the average, through the chair to the councilman for the average lot.
And is that just a cut only?
We consider cut, clean, remove nuisance.
What was that?
Through the chair to the councilman, we consider cutting the grass, removing the litter, the cost to get rid of the litter at our transfer station, those kind of things, equipment overhead, we consider all that in our costs.
So basically, it's cutting and just removing basic litter. It's not big, heavy debris.
Again, through the chair to the councilman's average. So if that part is, if that's on some lots and not on others, the average kind of works it out.
So every time you go to a lot, it's costing $250. And every lot in the city of Cleveland, is that also our structural lots too?
Through the chair to the councilman, with structures
Those
on
are
it.
structural lots with properties on them, homes, businesses.
Through the chair to the councilman, yes, we're included in that averaging.
That 252 for that one as well?
Yeah.
And so there's $250 on average, basically for most parcels in the city of Cleveland?
Through the chair to the councilman, on the average.
Okay. And so how many cuts on average that we're getting out there right now? I know we did an extra good job last year. So what are we looking at? What we did with the numbers last year? How many times did we get to a vacant lot?
Okay. So through the chair to the councilman, we had about 66,000 service visits to properties.
How many?
66,000 plus.
73.
66,073 service visits.
Yeah, it's a lot. 66,073 properties is what you cut.
Through the chair to the councilman, service visits.
Visits.
So it could have been one property got multiple visits.
Okay, so would that also, so I guess what I'm trying to break down is, I hear what you're saying, and it could be for coming back to the property and picking up some debris or something like that. So then, on just the cuts, on the grass cuts along, how many times do we, if we got one property, how many times do we visit that property on an annual basis?
Through the councilperson through the chair to the councilperson, you asked just for the grass cuts?
Yes.
Through the chair to the councilperson, we assume that every service has a grass cut.
So how many times are we then cutting the grass on a vacant lot?
Through the chairman to the councilperson, approximately 2 to 3 times per season.
Okay, so each vacant lot and structure is getting hit at least twice,
Yeah.
and then maybe 3 times. But a solid 2, possible 3.
Through the chair to the councilman, that's correct. Now, just to clarify, last year, 2024, we, for the majority of the city, we got a 4th cycle in.
So that means it got cut 4 times?
Mm-hmm.
And, Mr. Chairman, do we have a mapping of, or a breakdown of how many parcels in each ward?
Through the chair to the council person, yes, that can be provided.
Okay. And was that, will it be broken down where I have a better idea of what is actual structural versus the vacant lots?
I do believe we can parcel those out.
Okay.
Through the chair to the council person, sorry.
And then what would be good for me is to, because we want to manage it, work with you to figure out what are we actually dealing with and how we're approaching it. So, and then I don't know if you have it based on the maps where you can show it on the maps. Do you
Through
have
the chair
maps?
to the council person, when we get together, you can draw out whatever, and I can work with our staff to prepare whatever we need to work on.
Okay, great. That's it, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. I'm going to go to Councilman Danny Kelly.
Through the chair to the director, the assistant commissioner. Thank you. I have had good relationship with Project Clean. There have been plenty of times I met the fellas out where they were. It was hot, maybe brought them something to drink or that. But I also share the fact that I don't think I would particularly like to use my discretionary money to throw in there, but it has worked better than not. And I understand the difficulty of hiring people, and you have tardiness and you have absenteeism, but that's all part of logistics. It looks like you're trying to do the logistics of this. The only thing, maybe I will tip in and chat with you a little bit, but there's also got to be pride. Sometimes I think there's a lack of pride And just a few thoughts, but I appreciate your openness and your accessibility, okay? Thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilman Kelly. Councilwoman Mara.
Thank you. I really appreciated hearing from everybody on the committee. It's helpful to hear both across the city and our different experiences. And I think one thing that's really shared, your love for Mr. Ingram, mine for Tamisha, and for the guy who was on my ward crew all last summer. I mean, they are doing a thankless job. And I don't want this conversation about the kind of funding structure to besmirch or look poorly upon the work, especially of your crews and the management trying to do something very difficult under a difficult circumstance. What I'm hearing on this side is a lot of difficulty with how we structure the funding, and like you said, the operations. There's a lot within that, but I don't want anyone who's listening to think that, certainly for me, and I think for the folks at this table, that goes to ill will towards the folks who are doing really, really
Thank
hard
you so
work.
much. We appreciate that.
Yeah,
We really
I really wanted to make that extra clear as we head towards the summer. I know I saw my daffodils are already poking up at my house, and I was like, oh my God, spring is closer than we had realized.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of shared agreement that there's for those of us who have ward crews. When they work, and it's a great idea if to have this additional service. I think my goal is to not let it be structured in a way where we're having to pay individually. I think it should be baked into city services, including that level of top-notch service that Councilman Harrison mentioned, where you're looking down Nottingham Road and the weeds out of the sidewalk are being taken care of better. Mine is Jennings. Whenever the hill down Jennings, however they poured the concrete, the weeds are always popping up. And so every summer I send the ward crew out to knock those down. And it's just that little attention to detail that it's really hard. That it's hard to do. But I really, really struggle with this funding structure, and I struggle with asking council members to pony up our discretionary dollars. I think there's real fiscal questions for us. For instance, I was making a note with Councilman Harrison that both of us used our RIT money, not our CDBG, last year to pay for the ward crews. And so it's not even clear to me that this is accurate. And I'll just tell you philosophically, I don't want council members to be in a position of having to pay up out of our discretionary dollars for what should be a level of basic city services.
That's right.
And so philosophically, I'm opposed to it. As much as I respect the work being done, I appreciate why it needs to get done. I realize we're kind of like fighting this out, but I mean, I'm just going to say something out loud. We are a council that is dealing with a history of some of these ward-based funds being misused, and I don't think any of that's happening right now. But I just want us to move away from it entirely, and I don't want that shadow sort of following us. And I want us to be able to work together along with Public Works to make sure that we are meeting that higher level of service across the city. So I would like to move to amend this piece of legislation to add a section 4, which I would like to read that no cost under this contract shall be covered by ward-specific funding to provide ward-specific services through CDBG or RIT funding.
Okay, Councilman Moore, you saying section 4?
Yeah, I'd like to add, I'd like to add a section 4 between the current section 3 and current section 4.
Can the councilwoman, if I may,
Yeah, please.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
can the councilwoman repeat what the motion is?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, please.
Please, all right, I want to, be clear. All right, so inserting a section 4, a new section at the bottom. So currently section 3 reads, the cost of the contract or contracts authorized shall be paid from funds number 0170126380. And
Okay, so Councilman Moore,
yeah.
I have a section 4 in this, so it's already a section 4 there, did you?
Oh, yeah, so maybe let's just add this language after this current sentence in section 3. Maybe that'll be easier. So adding.
Is there going to be discussion?
Oh, yeah. We're gonna,
Oh, yeah, and I
just a
have to
minute.
have a second. We'll see if I get one. Maybe let's just add this as a sentence after the current cost of the contract or contracts authorized. And I'd like to add the language that no cost under this contract shall be covered by ward-specific funding to provide ward-specific work out of CDBG or RIT funding.
Okay, Councilwoman Marr has made a motion to amend ordinance number 1384 in section 3 to add, and she just went over that, but basically that the cost of this is going to come out of the funds that's listed and not out of councilmatic dollars on CBD dollars or councilmatic dollars, basically, long and short. Is there a second for this motion? Is there a second for the motion that's on the floor from Councilwoman Marr?
Can we have a discussion, Mr. Chairman, to understand it? Maybe there will be a second.
Pardon?
Maybe there will be a second, but I need to understand the proposition.
Well, Councilman, you know, of course, I'm no expert, but if we don't get a second, then there's nothing to discuss.
Exactly.
Right.
Okay.
I second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, there's a second by Councilman Jones. All right. All right. It's up for discussion.
Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
The question would be, Mr. Chairman, is if the distinguished lady could elaborate more about what this amendment would be about and a little bit more definition than just the suggestion.
Okay, Councilwoman Marr.
Thank you, Chairman. Certainly, my goal is to allow the overall contract for temporary services to move forward, but require that it be paid out of the general fund and not ward-specific funding through CDBG. I think there's not a lot of clarity about what CDBG could actually be used for out of these temporary funds, or if that's even what's being used. And overall, the incentives, once we create ward-based funding, is to encourage, it sets up a situation where council members have to put in their own discretionary dollars to receive a basic level of city service. And I would argue it kind of allows us to provide a lower level of service to the council members who don't put in money because they're not getting a ward-based crew. And my intention and goal is to move us towards a system where we have equal service across the entire city for everybody.
So, Mr. Chairman, you know, I've heard this argument before, equal, and then I look over my neighborhood. I don't have no development happening over my neighborhood. It's not equal. I don't have a lot of equal services that are being provided in other communities. We just haven't gotten it. So what I would say, Mr. Chairman, to the distinguished lady, one of the things that's important, I think that all the colleagues that I've known and I've been aware of sitting here for the last 6 years try to utilize their funds, and they're transparent in it. There's no shadowy background in how they use their discretionary funds, and so I took a little bit of an offense to that. And so I'm just letting you know that right here at this table. I've been here for a long time. There's only been one person that was questioned about their background, but the rest of these hardworking men and women that sit here at this table, like my colleague Anthony Harrison down at that table, the program is working for him.
Yeah.
Now, it didn't work for me. And when I went out, the guy kept complaining about the equipment, and I finally went out there to see what he was complaining about. And then Mike Cox was like, you can't hire them. We make those decisions, and we'll choose it, and you just give us a list, and they'll go cut. So I'm giving lists week in, week out, or every other week, and still not getting that work done. And so when I went out there, Mr. Chairman, for my work crew, to see what they were doing, 3 guys and a truck, and lawnmower equipment and weed whackers and the whole 9 yards. And I got out there, Mr. Chairman, I was disappointed. I saw the equipment. I thought it was decent equipment. It was a old Skag walk behind, and the throttle was stuck. And I said, so what's the problem with this machine? He says the throttle doesn't work, you know, and it doesn't stay where it needs to be. And I said, well, why don't you improvise? And he looked at me like I was crazy. And I said, improvising means that you still need to get the cut done. I still need to have the cut done. So I jumped into his truck, found some string, Mr. Chairman, because this is important. and tied up his throttle so that it could idle where it needed to be. No. I just, I want full attention. I ain't, messing around here speaking for nothing. And so, at the end of the day, I throttled up tied that piece up and jumped on that thing and showed him how to cut it in 10 minutes. And so the point is, I asked him this question, Mr. Chairman. I said, how many cuts have you done today? And we're in midday now. This was his first cut. And then I asked him, how many cuts did you do, because this is middle of the month. How many cuts have you done this month? 1. So it's 3 months have passed. How many cuts have you done in 3 months? 3. So here I am paying my money, and I felt that I was cheated all the way around the block. And so I decided to discontinue and was not going to go any further. But I would not, Mr. Chairman, to my distinguished colleagues, limit the capacity of my other colleagues to be able to have a crew that might be working for them. I think that if it's working for Mr. Hairston or any other members, that we should have that. There should be kind of like an a la carte, in a sense, for services on the east side. You're in the east side neighborhood. You have a lot of black folks over there, and I've been in your neighborhood, and they're not happy with some of the conditions in your community because they call me about it, and then I go and try to handle it for them. And so, and if anybody calls me, and you can reach me at 216-355-0017. If you got an issue and I can help you get it resolved, I don't care if you call from the east side to the west side. I'm gonna do my best to try to help you out because we're all citizens, we're all working together. And so if the proposition that's in front of us, Mr. Chairman, is to take that ability or capacity away, then I would rescind my
Okay, Councilman Jones. So what I'm hearing this is up for discussion. You already made the second, so this is up for discussion. Okay.
I think we should just vote on.
Do you want to rescind your motion? I mean, your second?
Unless the gentlelady wants a rebuttal response.
Okay, but that's not, so the thing of it is that the motion is, Councilman, the motion is still on the floor.
Yes.
The second is seconded. Now, we still having discussion, so
That's
we're
right.
gonna
So I want to hear what the other members got to say.
in just a second. All right, so I just want to state that my discretionary funds is just that, is to my discretion. So if we put this in the legislation, it takes away discretion. So I still want my discretionary funds to be discretionary 100% of the times, okay? All right, is there any other discussion on that? Councilman Harrison.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just so I'm clear on the motion that was made.
Yeah.
This motion will restrict ward-based crews altogether, correct?
No, I think my goal is to restrict ward-specific funding. If we can work it out with the administration to provide ward-based crews across the city and provide a higher standard of service for everybody, I of course want that. I think my philosophical opposition here is to different levels of service for different wards.
Right. Okay. So if we restrict ward-based funding, we're going to restrict ward-based crews. I mean, that's what happens, right? Unless we are saying that ward-based crews, with this motion, ward-based crews will still be allowed, and we will have ward-based crews, except the funding for all of it, the systematic crews that goes out and shift from ward to ward, plus the ward-based crews that stays in the ward after the system has moved out, will be maintained, but all funded from the general fund. Is that what you're saying?
I personally think that we could create a system like that. I mean, it goes to an operational question.
But your motion does not say my last point, right?
My intention is that it does, that if the administration could create a way for ward-based crews, pays out of the general fund, that's fine, but we can't have individual council members. My goal would be to move away from individual council members paying for individual ward-based crews.
But your amendment only does one thing, that just removes it altogether.
Yeah.
Until there's a resolution to figure that out.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Chairman, on that note, I would be absolutely no, because where I'm not going to change one thing and I don't have a fix for what we're trying to change. To just arbitrarily change something without a fix in motion, that would be irresponsible for us to do, and especially for neighborhoods where this works, right? You know, if we don't have the ability to have a crew stay in the neighborhood while the systematic crews are moving from ward to ward, subsection to subsection, you know, things that pop up that we need to get done that we won't be able to get done anymore. So, you know, again, it is all, as the chairman said, it is about your discretion. If you want to fund it, you fund it. If you do not want to fund it, don't fund it. Nothing about a ward crew in different wards says that anybody's getting anything more special than the other, right? That council person chose to keep a crew in their neighborhood to continue working after the system as a whole has shifted on. You know, I think the question should be, or the discussion should be around not a ward-based crew or somebody getting better service or better treatment than the other. It should be about the system as a whole that we have that are doing these systematic cuts, and take the war crew out of the discussion, because again, the war crew is discretionary and is supplemental to the overall process that we have here in the city of Cleveland. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm a no. I mean, you can call the roll on the motion, but that would be irresponsible for us to make that move here. To restrict other neighborhoods, as Councilman Jones indicated, that it may be working for them. I mean, you know, just because it's not working for somebody else don't mean it isn't working for them, and it's discretionary, as the chair said. It's up to you whether you want to support it or not, right? And if you feel like you're not getting the service you need in your ward, then both of the men are right here. Talk to them. Hey, how are we going to get this together to better provide services to these neighborhoods? So that being said, Mr. Chair, I'll yield.
Mr. Chairman.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones.
Yeah,
Councilman
I
Jones,
like
hold on, just let me go back and hear from the members that we haven't heard from. We gave you the first shot at the bite of the apple when you made the
I
motion.
want to come back because I got some intriguing to add.
All right, Councilman Starr.
Yes, I agree with our colleague, Councilman Harrison. If we're not going to have a system in place that's going to ensure that we still have crews in there, my whole point would be to make sure we get the funding, not just necessarily from council, adding it to some type of general fund operating dollars. So that $4.9 million is already in the budget for the work that we already know that needs to be done and that should be done, but also not limiting the fact that we need to be able to still have these crews that can work in our ward for different things that we are receiving as far as in regards to different issues in the neighborhood, lots that may grow a little faster than other lots. So still having that crew in there is something that is very important. So if we have that added to it, that makes more sense, but my whole approach is making sure that 4.9 is not just something we have to use our discretionary dollars for, but is included in the budget, but we have a system in place where they still are each ward crew and which can be still beneficial. So with the amendment as it is, I will be a no unless we have something that makes more sense to include that.
Okay, all right, Director.
Through the chair to all of council, I would just suggest from an operational perspective that if you were to allow me to really get this pilot off the ground to where it's sustainable, and then take a look at that portion, it might be a little better from that perspective. Now again, the fiscal portion of it is I run from, but from the operational perspective of trying to make sure that we have that equitable service, I think it's really incumbent on me getting that pilot off the ground and really seeing, because when I don't know is what I don't know, you know, because of the bringing on those contractors, seeing how they perform, getting them up to snuff will take some time. I would hope that we would keep those ward crews still functioning in the meantime, so until I have something to prop up to at least offer you to put in place there.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, Director. I mean, I agree. I still want my war crew, but one thing I want to change is I want my war crew to be a lot more effective, a lot more transparent, and I want to know what they have not only are they're gonna do, but I want to know the progress they've made over the course. All right, I'm gonna go to Councilman Jones.
Did you have something, Danny?
I'm going to Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I just want be respectful to my colleague, so thank you. You know, it's good to see, you know, after 2 years, you know, my colleague coming around to understand that this is a problem and how we've been fighting here at this table. So if the suggestion is to, Mr. Chairman, to, for the proposition that maybe we can get funds, which I'm not opposed to, is one of the reasons why I felt that we should get monies for ARPA for the neighborhoods so we can be able to do some things to help our community, but that didn't happen. And then there was one of our colleagues who talked about getting 50-50 in terms of other funding from casino funds, and that didn't happen either. So I'm open to the proposition of $765,000 being added to the program to cover every single ward to have a ward crew. And I was asked this question, Mr. Chairman, what I thought was wrong with the program. And my response was two things. Systematic failure, which is a complete breakdown of the whole system, is just not functioning. And I came to that conclusion 2 years in my first term, that the program is just broken in so many different parts and pieces. How are you going to ever put it back up again? It's like Humpty Dumpty sat on the wall, fell over and smashed down, and then it's just not functioning. And so I think systematic failure is one issue, and then culture, the culture of the people who are there in addition to management in terms of running it. So if, Mr. Chairman, the proposition is to take away this whole piece, however you want to, if you want to, I can rescind it according to parliamentary rules, or we can take a vote on it. So
Mr. Chairman, we're going to take a vote on it. We can't, you know, we're going to take a vote on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right, is any other discussion, or is any other comments about the amendment?
Can we
Okay,
get
hold
through?
on just a minute, Councilman Jones. Now, it has been brought to my attention that if the amendment goes forward, then we have to go back and put it in another section, because that section is already.
Right, through the chair, I just want to bring this to your attention. Fund number 01.
Oh, can you hold on? Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. So this piece of legislation, the source of funding of this legislation from the fund number stated is only for the general fund. That's all it's authorizing.
Right.
So what you're approving is the general fund over here. This fund number 0170126380 are general fund dollars.
And could I ask a question,
Go ahead,
Chairman?
Councilwoman.
So how do you understand that alongside the executive summary, which lists $1.2 million in CDBG funds in addition to $3 million in general fund to cover the estimated cost?
So, Councilwoman, through the chair to the Councilwoman, the summary is not part of this legislation. It's not incorporated as a file.
Yeah.
For the purposes of this legislation, this fund number, it's been brought to my attention, if you give me a second, that these are only general fund dollars. Fund number 0170126380, it's a general fund, and that is the only funding source named. The legislation does not name other fund numbers or say any other funds approved by the Director of Finance. So just as specific to this piece, and just for your information, that legislative summary is not incorporated as a file in this legislation.
Okay.
So this is what you're approving.
So I would think that we would need to sort this out by finance, but effectively, I think what he's saying is, if my intention was to move us towards full general fund funding, that is what this does currently, and it doesn't impact the operational ability to have ward crews or ward funds separately. It's just that this legislation itself, as written, only deals with the general fund despite
Yes.
the executive summary.
Yes.
And so I do believe I've made a motion on the table, but even with that information, even I would vote no and then just ask that we get some clarity at finance about what's going on with this legislation.
Okay, Madam Clerk, we're going to call the roll on that that motion that's on the floor. Bishop? No.
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 All right, is there any other comments? Is there any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
I apologize.
Councilwoman Moore?
Chairman, you have chaired a great meeting, so thank you. I just want to add one thing. As this moves forward through finance and possibly to council, I think all of us deserve an accounting of our prior spends and what they were used on. This was something I asked for at the table last year, and would continue to like, regardless of any changes that are not supported by my colleagues. I put in $57,000 into this program for a 3-person crew. To my understanding, I didn't have a 3-person crew last summer, and so I would just like to understand that component as we move forward with this.
Okay. All right. I really do get how you feel, Councilwoman, because when we pay for something, I mean, that's anybody at this table and anybody listening. When we pay for something, that's what we would expect to get. And when we don't get that, then, we kind of look, should we pay for this again? And how can we trust who we pay will deliver what we're asking for when they happen in the past? So I really do understand. Sorry, so Councilman Jones, you want to make another comment?
Yeah, and I want to say this. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for your leadership on a very important subject and a topic that needs to be deliberated through. And I appreciate, Mr. Chairman, the director, even though I hit you hard on this, that's not directed towards you. I know you just got there. But I want to say this, Mr. Chairman, and I've said this before. Whatever you need to make this program work and function, I will be there to support in every way financially. This is a problem of issue in the neighborhood, as me and Mr. Bishop have complained at this table previously about stuff not getting done in our neighborhoods. So whatever that cost is, and I know that if you had to put together a crew for every single neighborhood in the city of Cleveland, rough estimate would be $765,000 is more exact than rough. So it's $765,000, and that doesn't include equipment. So by the time you put the equipment cost in there, you're looking at probably double that figure. So I'm open, Mr. Chairman, if the gentlelady wants to add on to this.
All right, thank you, Councilman Jones. All right, seeing no further discussion, ordinance number 384, 2023 stands approved. Please sign it.
Mr. Chair, I know that, go ahead, you can get
Go ahead,
out.
go ahead,
Yeah,
go
you
ahead,
good.
Councilman.
No, go ahead, you can get out. No, I was just going to say, I don't want to hold us up any longer. I agree that maybe having some sort of reporting about what work was completed by the war crews, once the systematic, team has left, right? Because when the systematic team, as I understand it, when they're working in the neighborhood, the war crews they join in with the overall crews, and they get lists and they do the work. But for me, I think it's really once the entire system leaves, kind of what are the war crews doing? If it's things that have not come from the council office to cut, maybe if we haven't seen anything, just kind of a weekly log of kind of what they have done in the neighborhood. I mean, because just relying on, I know Tamisha, maybe out for a little bit soon, so Todd will be left, and then whoever else, and so maybe having some sort of reporting could alleviate that. And I think lastly, Mr. Chair, I think some of the old timers have this thing about not talking to council people, and I know because I've heard it, right? Yeah. That shouldn't be a thing, right? Because we know best where something has been missed, or what needs to be cut, or what was forgotten, right? But if we're out, I'm not saying that we tell them, hey, stop what you're doing now, go over there and cut. No, but if you're out and you happen to interact with a crew and they kind of talking with you, or you're telling them what's going on, obviously you're not telling them to leave what they're working and go somewhere else. But I think interaction with members could be very helpful, and that's one thing that Mike did. Ingram, he would call, have conversation. Hey, let's get together, right? Mm-hmm. He'd call me up. He'll see me on St. Clair. That's just
Yeah.
my thing. If I'm out, or Mike is riding, the crew may be out there, I'll just see somebody flag me down because they know it's me. And we get out, we're talking just about, okay, we were thinking about this, what's your thoughts? Should we, just interact? I mean, that helps, right? Yeah. I mean, that helps so now, there's onus on everybody, right? As it relates to what was done, how it was done, and so forth. So I think interacting with council members, in whatever way could be helpful to the overall process. So that way folks know kind of what their crew is doing, right?
Absolutely.
So, you know.
Through the chair to the council member, I totally agree, and I would just make mention that that relationships go both ways.
Yeah.
You know, how council approaches the staff, you know, is also important as well, because I know on occasion, you know, sometimes, you know, emotions get to where they are and it can turn adversarial. But we are, from the director's chair, we are trying to make sure that everyone knows that we're all on the same team. And although there are processes, for example, if you do interact with a crew, just let me know. You know, just let us know, so if they did go off the beaten path, we know why, or if it was informed. And so just communicating, like you mentioned, is the key.
Absolutely, just communicate, and it's nothing wrong with that, right?
Right,
And so sometimes if I reach out, they'll say, well, listen, well, we're in the middle of doing something. Can we get to this? And we'll circle back. You know, let's work together. I mean, that's okay, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, it goes both ways, right?
Absolutely.
You know, and so I think that is something that if we kind of did that more, I think it'll maybe help, you know, especially Councilman Bishop being the chair of Public Works or Public Municipal Service and Properties. I mean, if nobody knows what's going on, he better know what's going on, right?
Absolutely.
Because,
Absolutely.
you know, as the chair, he holds a lot of will, you know, that he typically don't use. But, you know, he should know exactly.
Oh, he uses it. Oh,
You know, that he knows
trust
exactly
me,
what's going on.
council
So-
member, he uses it.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chair, thank you. You can close this out.
All right, thank you, Councilman Harrison. I want to say this from experience that the precipitation. You know, I live in Ward 2, but I go shovel a house out in Ward 4. And this last storm, for sure, verified that I got way more snow in Ward 2 than I got over here at my house in Ward 4. I must have got about 3 or 4 inches difference. So
Easy.
we do get a different level of, and you know, folks may not believe that, but we do get a different level of Mother Nature in certain parts of the city. All right, is there any other comments on ordinance number 1384? Any other questions? Seeing no further questions or comments, ordinance 1384 stands approved. Please sign it. And that concludes the Municipal Service and Properties Committee. I'm calling this committee adjourned.